It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday afternoon podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, broadcasting from left field with his opinions, John Riley. We welcome you as we get ready to kick off a great sports weekend. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you in San Diego, and the new one that's opened in Orange County. If you've got projects in the home, you've got projects in the workplace, projects outside in the patio by the pool, think materials, think ideas, think DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, are you ready for some baseball in October? How cool. The wild card week is so wild.
It is wild. I mean, American League, National League, we got a lot of topics on the table.
We're going to go a lot of different directions. Before we start, couple of business items. When we are done with our podcast, we're giving you the opportunity, those of you with us on live stream, so jump into the line early. We call it Fans Forum. He is going to explain it.
Yeah, Greg and Michael have already jumped in line. We just got started. So thanks. Hey, if you've got a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, now is your chance. Just drop your take or your question in the live chat on Facebook, YouTube, or X. We're seeing them on the screen here, and we get to them at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines in Fans Forum.
Fans Forum comes up right after we are done. Second item, you're all on social media. I want you to help me. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team. Just when you go on social media, punch up at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Follow me. Therefore, when we put stuff up on my Twitter account, you'll get access to it. If you like sports, have you ever read my website? I write on it every day of the week. Volume of information about the baseball playoffs, the beginning of the baseball offseason, NFL and what's going on, college football, the NBA, hockey, etc. Go to my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. Check it out when we're done with this podcast. You'll get an idea what I just wrote for today. It's there first thing every morning for you. And by the way, when you go to the podcast, there's an orange box right up at the top. I want you to fill that out. Join Hacksaw's Insiders group. That way you'll be able to get on our mailing list for all the diverse things that we do. Also, want you to share. Tell everybody. Hey, I don't care how you message to your followers and your friends, text, emails, phone calls, whatever. Tell them what we do Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. on this podcast. And we want you to subscribe. And when you subscribe, you'll get alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. Aside from the Monday, Thursday shows, we do put a lot of other stuff up there. So we're going a lot of different directions on social media. Blame him. John Riley is the one that's responsible for making.
You sound like a barker in front of a Tijuana strip club, man. You know, come on, let's go, let's get in.
If we were in front of a club like that, I'd be in there rather than out here with you because you would already have the table reserved. All right, let's go. We got tons of topics on the table. It's going to be a really busy day. We might be here till Friday, but let's get started with Major League Baseball.
I mean, the energy at Petco, man, it was just like the headline says, it was electric.
The stadium seats 42,000. They had 47,000 back-to-back nights as they beat up the beaten down Atlanta Braves. Hell of a playoff run. Padres, of course, had the day off. Atlanta had the doubleheader on Monday, qualified, got on the plane, came here. I thought Atlanta put up a really good fight. But who could have imagined Atlanta would still be in this series in the 9th inning of the final game, having lost Chris Sale and having lost Max Fried. I thought Atlanta really played hellacious baseball when you consider all the injuries and all the keynote players who are not part of the Atlanta Braves at the end of the season. Padres earned it. Padres are hot. Any inning, any at-bat, any of those guys in the batting order can damage you. Now, granted, Machado did well, Merrill did well, Tatis did well, but top to bottom in that batting order and a cross-section of the pitchers into that bullpen, John, this is the most dangerous team in Major League Baseball. And what did the dudes on ESPN spend all day yesterday talking about? How dangerous the Padres are. They must have gotten my memo or they saw what I wrote at my website. But this is an electric team. Now, I'm concerned is a bad look losing Joe Musgrove. And the fact that now Musgrove, he's undergone this MRI, he's re-injured the elbow. The fact that Joe wasn't feeling right in the days leading up, because between starts, you do bullpen sessions, and he wasn't feeling right. And I don't think he told anybody. And he wasn't feeling right warming up in the bullpen before the game, didn't feel right in the first inning. And obviously in the fourth inning, he lost all of his velocity. And you could tell immediately when he started to shake his arm that maybe there was a twinge, maybe there was something wrong. And now we find out it's a strained forearm, and they're undergoing an MRI to see if there's any other damage. Problem is you don't come back from that by next week, by next series. I think this is going to be an extended stay. I hope there's not further damage for Joe Musgrove. You can credit him for great heart, but he really put himself at risk. And that bothers me. I understand he's a fierce competitor, but he didn't need to do that because they got two other starters. They got Yu Darvish, and they could have activated Martin Perez. And instead, he went out and tried to grind his way through it and came out of the game in the fourth inning. And now we know there is some damage there, and he wasn't feeling right from the get-go. So I feel bad for Musgrove. You know, you and I messaged each other this past game, and I said, oh, it was so cool to see the Padres do what they did. My ears have not stopped ringing from Petco Park, but there's a bit of the excitement, I think, that's been tapered off because we lost Super Joe because he elected to try to pitch. So we get that storyline. Second storyline. Is it Saturday night yet? Padres, Dodgers. I mean, this has always been a much anticipated rivalry, but no more so than this year. You know, because all I can flash back to now is all the years the Dodgers used to come into Petco Park or the Padres would go up to Chavez Ravine, and the Dodgers would mop the floor up with the Padres. You know, and more recently, last spring training, first exhibition game, you and I are all excited. The Dodgers scored 8 bloody runs in the first inning against San Diego. Or I flash back to when I was doing regular TV stuff. I was down at Petco Park for Andy Green's first game. What did the scoreboard read? 15-0.
Oh, I remember that one. That was an opening day game.
Opening day.
Yeah.
In fact, that whole weekend, Padres scored no runs. So can I use the word payback?
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, the Padres beat the Dodgers 8 of the 13. That's all great. But now this is a new venture. As we go Saturday, Sunday, off day, Tuesday, Wednesday, off day, Friday, 5th game if they need a 5th game. And you got the Padres pitching staff is set. The Padres batting order is hot. And the bullpen is deep. The Dodgers top of the batting order, the statistical numbers are like neon lights. They just catch your attention. Bottom half of the batting order, not so much. I just don't know. Once you give the ball to Jack Flaherty and you give the ball to Yash Yamamoto for 4 innings, I don't know who the hell else is going to pitch for the Dodgers because they are woefully thin in the rotation. And, pal, this is the most important time of the season, playoffs. How many rotation days you're going to ask your bullpen to pitch? That's what the Dodgers have. So this is going to be such a great rivalry because it's always been a great rivalry, whether it was big brother, little brother, or whether they're going to slay the dinosaur now, to quote the late, great Peter Seidler.
No, the dragon.
The dragon.
Yeah, slay the dragon.
This is going to be so much fun. So your thoughts, Padres, your thoughts, Musgrove, your thoughts, brown and gold versus Dodger blue.
Well, first of all, I just love the vibe in San Diego right now.
Oh, the electricity.
You know, people are fired up. You know, it's a great, this town loves a winner. And so love seeing that Tatis, that line drive that bounced off of Fried's left rear end. That was a shot. I mean, was that like over 110 miles an hour? I mean, imagine getting hit by one of those. So you love seeing the boys mash. You love seeing those guys come through. Merrill with a double and the triple. And it got a little weird there at the end. I got a little bit of tension.
The dude ran and caught the ball by the wall. That's okay. That's Merrill.
Yeah, but, you know, the Arizona, you know, when Marcell Ozuna comes up, I'm always thinking, that's the wife beater guy, you know, and I'm kind of booing and hissing him. But good for the Padres taking care of business. Now they go to play LA, and the thing that I keep thinking about is Andy Green. Remember they had that scuffle like in 2018, and Andy Green goes, "Hey, it may not be this series, but we're coming. We're coming, and it may not be in. We'll come for the division, and then we're coming for you." And it's like he was like a prognosticator.
Yeah, you got yappy with Dave Roberts when they're exchanging lineup cards at home plate.
Yeah, so it's all coming true now.
Oh, but man, there's so many great storylines.
Oh yeah,
Showtime. El Nino, La Salsa, Manny, the pitching staffs, and the fans. It's Dodger fans, Padre fans are now starting to equal Raider fans, Charger fans in the stands.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're getting close to that. You should see the people on Instagram zinging each other back and forth. Padre fan, Dodger fan. It's just relentless. I mean, just like walking in there, it's like a bloodbath of people just smoking each other over the whole thing. It's hilarious. People love the rivalry. And I think Dodger fan realizes that the Padres, now they're a legit rival, at least competitively. Now let's see if they can get over the Dodgers. And if they do it 2 playoffs in a row in 2022 and 24, then the Dodgers have got to start, saying, hey, be a little more humble pie.
Your heart ache for Joe Musgrove when you saw that?
Oh, yeah. When he was wiggling his arm, you could feel the forearm tightness was a thing. But I remember the first pitch of the game, what was it? Michael Harris just
whacked it.
Yeah, line drive to right field. And you're like, not a good way to start. So, yeah, he probably felt something, but, he's the hometown guy, and he doesn't want to let the fans down. He doesn't want to create drama. He just wants to, plow his way through like a real man. I get it. The Padres are blessed because they have that depth, and now you go to Darvish. I don't think Musgrove's coming back from this. I don't think we're going to see him in the postseason, but I wish him well. I hope he's going to be okay.
I hope there's no surgery coming. He lost 9 miles off his pitches from the first pitch that Harris whacked to when they came and got him in the 4th inning, 9 miles an hour.
Wow.
So that's a big, big issue. But Super Joe's given us great moments of leadership, great moments of fire on the mound, great performance too. He'll be like you and me having to watch it now on TV. I was with a longtime Padre fan in the early morning hours today while I was doing fitness workouts. This guy goes back to the old Pacific Coast League, Luke Easter-led, Satchel Paige pitched here.
Oh, wow.
San Diego Padres of the PCL.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So this guy's got season tickets, etc. Got into a debate today at the fitness center about which team brought us the most excitement. Was it the 84 Padres into the World Series against the Tigers by virtue of the Garvey home run? Was it Tony Gwynn, Trevor Hoffman, who loved baseball history at Yankee Stadium? Or was it this collection of Seidler's All-Stars? What do you think?
That's a great question. I think the short answer is this season is the one that has the most electric. Because like in 84, I remember I was a college student, and San Diego was a lot smaller then.
Yes.
It was like, 1.5 million people in the county, something like that.
Now it's 3.5.
Yeah, it's like doubled roughly. So, the Padres, it was a surprise for everyone for them to suddenly be competitive in 84. The 98 run was big. The 98 run was a great run. We also had the stadium, the ballot for the stadium and everything else. But this one feels different because the love of Peter Seidler, the new ballpark, and the fact that the Padres are really San Diego's primary team.
Slay the Dragon time. I want you to join us on Fans Forum. Your impression of the Padre Brave series. Padres Dodgers, they're now on equal footing. It's not big brother, little brother. It's not LA versus small town San Diego. Are they on equal footing? Jump on board. And if you're a longtime Padre fan, you tell us on Fans Forum which team brought us the most excitement. Padres Tigers, World Series 84, Padres Yankees, or what we have experienced today at Petco Park. Fans Forum lines are open. Jump in line. We're going to try to take as many as we can as we march on. Next topic, it is baseball.
I want to say, though, first, I think it's great when you go to the fitness center to work out and then people want to talk sports with you. And
it's like I'm doing morning talk radio again at 6:15 in the morning again.
That's awesome. I think it really is. Okay, let's talk a little bit about here. Shockers everywhere. A lot of big wild card upsets.
Boy, this is really hard to explain. You got the Detroit Tigers taking out the Houston Astros. But Houston is a shade of what it used to be by virtue of injuries. Half their roster was on the DL. Most of their pitching staff was on the DL. Yes, they won their division, but it wasn't convincing. And this is Detroit. What are they calling that thing? Motown Magic? Amazing. This is a Tigers team that at one point was 10 games out of first place. At one point was 8.5 back the final month of the season. And they're going to the American League Divisional Series. Tigers, pretty impressive. And how hot is Detroit by virtue of what they did in the series against the Houston Astros? The Tigers are 33-13 over the last month and a half. Detroit. Oh, by the way, I just want to recall this because when we did our baseball preview, you do remember your co-host said the Tigers are going to be the team that's going to come out of the Central.
You did say that, and that was looking like a horrible prediction for a while, but it did come true.
Boy, I tell you what, they're doing it with a collection of pitchers that you can't name and I can't name outside of Tarek Skubal.
Right.
What a phenomenal arm he's got. And that was a guy they're trying to trade at the deadline, and they kept him, and look what they did. And they're doing it with the Torkelsons and the Riley Greens of the world. This team has just come together. Now, they might wake up in this next round and realize where the hell they are and start to scream, because that's really hard when you got a young team that's never been there before. Now, A.J. Hinch has been there before as their leader. So Detroit eliminates Houston, and Houston's got to be sick because not only are they eliminated, they're going to lose Justin Verlander, who just announced he's going on the free agent market. He's going to pitch somewhere else. They might lose Alex Bregman. They've not offered him a contract. He's represented by you-know-who.
Scott Boras.
It's a big issue. So the cloud cover looks pretty dark with the Houston Astros. Congratulations, Motor City Magic. Let's talk about the Orioles. I guess the bottom line is, and I have great respect for what Mike Elias has done to fix Orioles baseball, but you have to learn how to win in postseason. A year ago this week, community was in an uproar because the 115-loss Orioles had actually gotten into the playoffs, got swept. This year, 91-win season, fought their way through a much tougher American League East, get to the wild card round, get knocked out back-to-back. They stopped hitting. If you can't hit, you probably can't win. Of course, if you don't have pitching, you can't win either in postseason. 1 run in 18 innings. For the Baltimore Orioles. It's got to be devastating. So they're going to have to go back and just reevaluate, because they've done it virtually all with kids. There's hardly anything from the outside of Corbin Burns, who was the frontline starter. Can they go get another veteran rental bat? They could kind of stabilize and give him a little bit more power burst. I felt bad for Gunnar Henderson. He had no hits in this playoff series, and that's a really fine player. So the Orioles, they lose to Kansas City. They got to learn how to win. How about Kansas City? This is a team that had 2 7-game losing streaks in the final months of the season. And Kansas City spills into the playoffs and comes up with 2 mystical pitching performances, and they wind up beating the Orioles. New York Mets, Atlanta Braves. I do not understand how the Mets have any oxygen left to go out and play more games after everything they've been through just in the last week. And that was a Mets team that was so far behind the power curve the first half of the season because of injuries and how poorly they pitched. And they got progressively better and better and better. And now it's this final game against the Milwaukee Brewers. I just don't know if the Mets have any gas left. And this kid, Jackson Chourio, holy cow, has he come on the second half of the season, young Milwaukee star. And he and Willie Adames have made a massive difference. Now, Milwaukee's a little shaky defensively. They have bad flashes. You say, my goodness, you're going to hurt yourself in postseason by throwing the ball around and throwing it away. But Milwaukee's playing this winner-take-all game against the New York Mets. So your response to what you saw, who's still there, who's not there?
Well, I love the fact that Houston got blown out. They're out. I think I read that they've lost like 7 consecutive home games in the playoffs or something. And I think Baltimore has lost 10 consecutive. Is that right?
Yes.
That's insane. So I love the fact the Astros got toasted. Get rid of those cheaters. And it's neat that Detroit, because they've been on the downside for so long. I remember the Detroit Tigers in the early 70s would often play the Oakland A's in the ALCS. Back in those days.
Nicky Lolich days.
There you go. Yeah. So that was good. It's nice to see Detroit. And Detroit's been through hell, so good for them. Orioles is just a mystery. I don't understand that. I expected them to do better. I'm shocked Kansas City. Look at that. Kansas City and Detroit coming out of the AL Central, which I normally think of as the weakest division in the major leagues.
Kansas City, thank you. 15-game winner, Seth Lugo, ex-Padre.
And then Michael Wacha was doing pretty well too.
Till he broke down.
Yeah. So, I mean, wow, amazing. And then the Mets, yeah, I'm thinking more about the Brewers on the other side of it. Because to me, the Brewers are the most nondescript good team.
93 wins.
Yeah, they get wins. They've got guys, but they're not superstars. Or maybe Churio is now, but they're just so mid. They just never really get to the championship series. They haven't been to a World Series since the Wallbangers in the early '80s, right?
So it's fascinating to see. Don't you just love the best of three? Holy cow, is that must-see TV? Don't bother me. Don't call me. Don't knock at the door. Don't text me. I'm watching the wild card.
It's great. And I think, one and done was a little too quick, but I think this works out really well. And a 3-game series in one place. Yeah, right on. And it's proven that the visiting teams are winning.
Okay. If your team's still alive or your team just got knocked out, jump into the Fans Forum chat box. Give us an opinion there. We go from that baseball topic to the next baseball topic.
Oh yeah. Here we're going to get the big boys involved in the playoffs.
Let's talk Yankee baseball. Yankee baseball. Is it more than Soto, Judge, and Garrett Cole? Do the Yankees have a bullpen? Can the Yankees rely on this young phenom who won 16 games this season but has faltered at the back end of the schedule, Luis Gil? Are you going to trust Carlos Rodon with the number 2 start in the slot in the American League Divisional Series? Interesting to see what Yankee baseball is. I mean, there's no doubt that Aaron Judge, legitimate big-time superstar, 55 home runs, 298 batting average. There's no doubt Soto, whether you like him or dislike him, 41 bombs and a 280 batting average. And they got some other guys that can pop long balls, though they seem to live and die strictly on home runs from Soto and Judge. So the Yankees are worth watching. Cleveland. You mentioned nameless, faceless Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Cleveland. Outside of Jose Ramirez, is there anybody who can join me on Fans Forum who can name anybody else on the Cleveland Indian roster? And yet, they're playing in the divisional series. Their team batting average, John, is 238. Outside of Ramirez, 49 home runs and 278 batting average. They should have anybody that hits. They do have really, really good pitching. But, so Cleveland is there. Jose Ramirez has kind of dragged them into postseason play. They're kind of dangerous, but I'm sorry, they're not on the same sentence, same level, same plane as, say, the New York Yankees or even the Baltimore Orioles were. Philadelphia, the Citizens Bank Ballpark Bombers. Unbelievable. You look at Philadelphia, it's like home run derby in the batting order. Philadelphia has got 8 guys with double-digit home runs, led by, I can't play left field, but I'm playing left field, Kyle Schwarber, who's got 38. And Bryce Harper, though he's been dinged up part of the season, he's got 30. And you got Castellanos. And you got JT Realmuto. And you got Alec Boehm. Man, they got a lot of guys that can hit a bomb. And then you're going to give the ball to suddenly what's a really good 4-man rotation. I mean, we're talking this whole collection of arms led by Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and the 2 kid left-handers. Chris Sanchez came out of nowhere, and now they got Ranger Suarez back, and they got the ex-Angel Carlos Estevez in the bullpen. Philadelphia is a really dangerous team. And then there's all things Dodgers. Okay, so I went back and did some checking late last night. I sleep in about 3.5 hours and 2 cups of coffee. So the Dodgers hit 233 home runs this season, right behind the Yankees, 237. Dodgers top of the batting order carried them. That's why the rest of the batting order the whole team has a 258 combined batting average, which is okay. Ohtani, trust me, we're never going to see these statistics again. 310, 54 homers, 130 ribbies, 59 stolen bases, and an OPS somewhere in the solar system.
Amazing.
Ohtani was phenomenal. But he's not the only one. Mookie Ball, Betts, 289 with home runs. Freddie Freeman, 282 with home runs. 1-year rental, Teoscar Hernandez, 271, 33 bombs. And that doesn't count Will Smith, who might be the best hitting catcher, hot and cold, in Major League Baseball. I mean, obviously the other issue is the Dodger pitching staff, because I don't know if the Dodgers have anywhere enough pitching. You're going to give it to Flaherty for game 1 against San Diego. You're going to give it to Yash Yamamoto for game 2. Flaherty's got a 3.58 ERA. Yash is 3.00, but Yash can only go about 4 innings. And then you're going to trust your bullpen. And then you got Buehler after that with a 5.38 ERA. You got the kid Knack, 3.65. But this is the playoffs. This is not 4th week of the season. And you got Kershaw, who can only pitch 1 inning, maybe out of the bullpen, with a 4.50. So which of those marquee name teams scares you the most?
The Phillies. Yeah, they're the ones that I'm worried about. They knocked us off 2 years ago. But to your point, it's like every guy in that order. It's like Harper and Castellanos and JT Realmuto, and we can go on down the list. They're just loaded. And Nola and Wheeler are so darn good. So that's the team I'm most worried about. I love that the Guardians are kind of there, kind of percolating, maybe something's going to happen for them.
They won 93 games. How's that possible? Look at that roster.
Exactly. Like who else is on the list? Like Roberto Alomar, he retired, didn't he? I mean, so yeah, I'm curious about them. The Yankees are, to me, I like to root against the Yankees and the Dodgers. And is Giancarlo Stanton playing? Is he healthy?
He's got 27 home runs, hitting like 233. He's a shadow of what he used to be in Miami because of the injuries, but he's one of those guys that is going to pop one somewhere during the course of the playoffs, because he always pops one.
What's funny is like even in the Padre Atlanta series, they talked a lot about the Soto trade and how the Padres got a lot of great value in return for that. And it's really seems like every day that trade looks a little bit better. But wouldn't it be something if the Yankees get in the playoffs here and they get blown out in the first round, and then Soto suddenly elects to be a free agent, and then the Yankees have got nothing? That's a scenario that may happen.
Yeah, but the Yankees have bank. Yankees have big money budget, abilities to write checks and pay luxury taxes. Unless he's going across the bridge to the Mets, I don't think he's leaving the Big Apple at all. Oh, by the way, sidebar comment, you mentioned that name. So right at the height of the Padres celebration, after they eliminated the Braves, and nobody would leave the stadium, and the players came back out and took a team photo in their victorious brown "We Won" shirts. And on the scoreboard over their shoulder, it's this big flashing sign, and the fans start chanting, "Beat LA, beat LA." And I thought to myself, gee, if I was on the air right now, I'd open the mic and say, "Does anybody here miss Juan Soto?" Or I'd open the mic a second time and say, "Look at all this. Can you believe the owner of the Chargers from the first family of football turned his back on this type of fan support to go to Los Angeles and be ignored?" Somebody on Twitter wrote today, the Chargers have less of a following than the WNBA team in Los Angeles. So I thought to myself, anybody here miss Soto? Can you believe Spanos did this, turned his back on this community when they owned this market? Look at what Seidler's All-Stars have done to our community. I'm sorry for the cheap shots, but that's what I feel.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, San Diego loves a winner here, and so I'm thrilled for Padre fans. I think this is great. What they should have put up on the big screen was Clayton Kershaw crying again, and that would get all the Dodger fans upset.
Put up on the screen was a picture of Mr. Seidler. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
So that's where we are there. One other baseball topic before we get to halftime, and join us on Fans Forum. Big question. I wrote a huge column about this. I'm taking so much heat for what I wrote on my website. Go chase the column down. How do you write the history of Major League Baseball without Pete Rose?
No, you can't.
You can't. So Pete Rose passes away. He's been ill for about 3 years. It's a really sad story, the demise of a fabulous but flawed person. Pete Rose was ill. He had 3 heart procedures in about a 5-year span. He had serious blood pressure problems and would not take care of himself. He had diabetes. So he finally passes away at age 83. The guy that did all these unbelievable things over the course of his career, 4,256 hits, 24 seasons in Major League Baseball, 17 All-Star appearances, 3 World Series rings, 3 batting titles, 2 Gold Gloves. He was baseball's ambassador from the 60s into the 80s. And then it all went away once he became a manager with the Reds, because of the Dowd report. And the rumors had floated endlessly through baseball that Pete Rose had a gambling addiction like you, John, you can't believe. And I read the Dowd report, 165 pages. I was shocked. And the most stunning thing to me was I read the Dowd report about what Pete Rose did the first weekend of the season. I think it was either 83 or 84. Padres were here. And he was betting on baseball. He bet from the Town and Country Hotel because they had all the documentation of all the calls he made to gambling numbers. They got the call list from the manager's office at San Diego's Jack Murphy Stadium and all the calls he made before games, placing bets through these 800 or 900 numbers. I mean, it's just staggering. And the worst part of that, he denied this. He lied about this for 19 years. And then obviously the Dowd investigation, Bartlett Giamatti's decision to permanently ban him from Major League Baseball. 10 days after Giamatti got the signed document from Pete Rose accepting the discipline, Giamatti dropped dead of a heart attack. And they said the stress that Giamatti was under, because he was taken out, the global ambassador of baseball, is one of the things that led to his death. But here, and there's so much other stuff off the field, terrible lawsuits, bank debts, went to prison for 5 months for failing to pay income tax on gambling, child custody issues, allegations of sex with minors. There was so much sleazy stuff off the field for the perennial all-star. That being said, hometown hero in Cincinnati. I got friends in Cincinnati who sent me pictures. The Great American Ballpark. Outside the Great American Ballpark, John, I mean, you're a big baseball historian. They have all these different statues of our stars from the Reds. And they have one of Pete Rose, head first slide.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that became the centerpiece for a memorial. It is covered by Reds jerseys, Reds hats, baseball bats, autographed balls, pictures, and dozens of roses on behalf of Pete Rose.
Oh, cool.
And in Cincinnati, Pete Rose, despite being a flawed person, was a fabulous player. He could do no wrong. So how do you write the history of baseball? How come they have all of his memorabilia in Cooperstown? I've been to the first floor where the memorabilia is, and they got all of his baseball stuff there. Ty Cobb is in the Hall of Fame. He was an outright racist. Cap Anson, legendary manager in the early turn of the century White Sox. He's in, outright racist. Babe Ruth, womanizer. Mickey Mantle, alcoholic. And yet there is no Pete Rose because of the gambling thing, but they have all those memorabilia in Cooperstown. Now, granted, there was no Barry Bonds, steroid injections and all. There was no Roger Clemens, etc. So I would like to think that baseball would lift the lifetime suspension because he's now deceased. And if they lifted it, then the Hall of Fame can put him back on the ballot. But there's a lot of people do hold grudges. A lot of people will not admit Barry Bonds, nor Roger Clemens, nor Sammy Sosa, nor Alex Rodriguez to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So you tell me how you write the history without Pete Rose and your reaction to the guy. I mean, he was fabulous. He was flawed.
Very complex, right? You know, there's
so is my column.
Yeah. Well, your column was excellent. There's so many different layers to this. First of all, it's two-faced of Major League Baseball to ban him from baseball and still have his memorabilia in the Hall of Fame. I mean, come on.
You could put him in the Hall. You didn't have to hire him. There could be a ban about his employment in the game. But what he did as a player, he did legally.
Yeah. So that's my take is similar to yours. His records should be in the record book. Most hits in Major League Baseball history and any other number of records he achieved. But we need to tell the full story. And he provides a really good case study of why you shouldn't gamble. And that should all be part of the story. But just to hear like of the personal life, and dude was a man of bad character. Yeah. But I think as a sports fan, we can separate that. We can nuance this and say, yeah, bad dude, good athlete. And for the athlete, yeah, put the statue in at Great American Ballpark. I'm supportive of that. They need to let him in the Hall just to tell the complete story. Otherwise, it's just dumb.
It's empty. It really is. You're missing a piece of history. But if we're doing that, Do we put an asterisk next to his name? So then do we open it for Shoeless Joe?
Yes.
And what do we do for the Black Sox scandal?
Same thing. You know, it's all part of the story of baseball.
What do we do with Bonds? We're going to put an asterisk next to him?
Yes. Put him in, put in an asterisk and an explanatory paragraph. Yeah.
Are you speaking as a baseball fan or a Giant fan?
Both. Yeah. Now, one thing I did hear that I thought was fascinating by this is that when Pete Rose was apparently in the Town and Country Hotel gambling, he was doing real-time betting, like in the 1980s, where, you know, the odds change as the game unfolds. And he was actively involved in that. And I'm thinking, how in the hell can you manage your team and be thinking about what's going on in the bottom of the fifth inning in Wrigley Field?
Yeah, I concur. I mean, it was an addiction of unbelievable proportions. And he never, ever left it. The saddest thing to me is, you know, when he was removed from baseball, he was not allowed to take part in any stuff at Riverfront Stadium or even the Great American Ballpark right till the end, until they inducted him into the Reds Hall of Fame. And he was not involved in anything with the All-Star game or at Cooperstown. At Cooperstown, the saddest thing, he set up a card table at a bar a couple of blocks from the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he would sell autographs. He would sign hats, pennants, shirts, pieces of paper. You got to pay. And that to me was a sad commentary. Here he is with all these people in line to go into the Hall of Fame for the Hall of Fame game and the induction ceremonies. Here's Pete at a cheapo card table doing this. And the other factor, because his nickname was Charlie Hustle, he did not come clean till 19 years later. I think it was 2005 when he wrote a book. And he came clean in his biography about betting on baseball. But Charlie Hustle, you had to buy the book for $51.95.
Well, it just goes to show you the cover-up is always worse than the crime itself. You know, but the other, I'll just say quickly about Pete Rose. I remember him as the Big Red Machine in the 70s.
Yep.
And then I remember seeing pictures just like the one on the screen here from the early 60s, and I didn't realize how much older Pete Rose was. And then it was weird when he was suddenly playing for the Phillies. And was he even on the Expos for a while?
Yeah, right at the tail end. And they came back to Cincinnati right at the end as their, to a degree, I think, as their player manager.
Mm-hmm.
So the fans forum line is open. Your thoughts, Pete Rose, Hall of Fame, thumbs up or thumbs down? Give us a response, an opinion, your observations. I read the Dowd report. It was staggering. Took me forever to get through it. It was so complicated. But I got a copy of the Dowd report, and it's got yellow magic marker things about all the stuff he did in San Diego. It was all documented, betting slips, phone bills, just non-stop. Hey, we get to halftime, our Thursday podcast off and running. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. Does not matter what the project is, whether you want to redo the kitchen, put cabinets in the bathroom, you're going to do the man cave, you want to add shelving somewhere in a storage area in the house, do something in the bedroom, do something out in the patio. When it comes time for projects, they've got materials. If you're looking for ideas, they'll do that too. They gave me advice because I'm colorblind. People don't know I'm colorblind. I can't tell if that wall is blue or green, but they gave me color coding advice, how to pick paints for my house. These are the guys I do business with. So does John. We want you to do business with them. Just think of the name when it comes time for projects. DIXIELINE Lumber. Hey, we're back as we go to the second half. Couple of business items. When we're done, fans forum chat box is open. Want you to pile in, give us some opinions, ask a question. You got a statement to make. We want to hear what it is. Next item on the agenda, I want you to join my all-star team, the Twitter all-star team that I have. You're all on social media. Go on X, just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090, and follow. We're trying to bust this thing. I'm trying to get through the 10,000 mark of followers on X on Twitter. Want you to check my website. When we're done with this podcast, take 5 minutes. Go to my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. Read the stuff that I write every day of the week. Follow it every morning. If you get up first thing in the morning, punch up my headlines, you'll have all the stories there are in the world of sports. Want you to share. Tell everybody what we do on our podcast Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to subscribe. And I don't know how the hell this works. John can explain it to you. Subscribe to the podcast, because once you do that, you'll get the alerts every time we put something up on our YouTube channel. And we do that quite often during the course of the week. And then when we're done, his pals take over this. You're going to hold us hostage. We call it Fans Forum. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, first of all, the subscription, you can subscribe in YouTube. You can subscribe wherever you get your audio-only podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, etc. And then, yeah, you'll get alerts when there's new content. But yeah, Fans Forum, everyone's piling in. John Dowd is in the list here. I don't know, is that the same guy from the Dowd Report? Angel, Roger, Pete, and Sebastian. We're going to get everybody involved in Fans Forum. Lots of great questions, talking Dodgers, talking Pete Rose. Everyone's got a comment.
We go to the second half of our Thursday podcast, kicking off this great sports weekend. There are other topics on the table aside from baseball. Boy, there's controversy too. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Davante Adams wants out from the Raiders.
Unbelievable. I have never seen in modern day sports the kind of dysfunction we have from everything that circles around Mark Davis's Raiders. Whether it was Oakland Raiders, where they didn't win any games, to the Las Vegas Raiders, where they've never really been able to do anything in the playoffs. They're always a franchise that's attracted to the shiny object. And more times than not, make a trade or sign a big money free agent, the shiny object shows up and it turns out to be stained. It turns out to be flawed, or it turns out to be a bad investment. And now this is happening. This guy, Davante Adams, really fine wide receiver, 890 receptions, 96 touchdowns, and a really good career. He's had enough with the coach. Antonio Pierce, his job might be in jeopardy because he's working for a pretty stable, no-nonsense guy in the general manager, Tom Telesco. And Antonio Pierce, week by week, goes off the deep end and does something, says something that offends people. 2 weeks ago, he blamed a bunch of players for making business decisions not to compete in a game, a.k.a. you bleep and quit. Now, this past week, on his social media account, somebody does something about Davante Adams, and Antonio Pierce kinds of signs off on the ideology, trade him. And by the way, Antonio Pierce just got hit by the NCAA for all the garbage you did at Arizona State. Got put him on probation. He's been hit with an 8-year ban by the NCAA ever coaching anywhere again. So this guy is all over the parking lot. He may sales pitch you. He might be an emotional leader, but they haven't won crap with him as a head coach, and now he seems to be offending everybody, and now he's offended the wide receiver, Davante Adams. He's asked to be traded. Now, the Raiders supposedly are asking for a second-round pick, which is awful high for a 32-year-old receiver. They might take a third-round pick as long as there's a player that's thrown into the deal. But Davante Adams is owed $18 million a year for the next 3 seasons, this year and the 2 following. Clubs are saying, we're not taking on that contract and giving you a big price for a 32-year-old. Raiders, you're going to pay a piece of the $18 million. So that's where it is. The general sentiment around the NFL from the people I network with is he's going to get moved. We hear the Jets. That's a lineage with Aaron Rodgers. Jets got their own problem. I was told the Jets said, we will talk to you about Adams if we get permission to talk about restructure of his contract. We'll give you Hassan Reddick, our holdout linebacker, who's forfeited so much money, it's utterly ridiculous. You can talk to him about an extension before the trade goes through. So maybe there's something there that's going to happen. There was a rumor, Kansas City. That makes no sense at all. The Raiders are not going to deal with the enemy in the division. There is talk Cleveland. Now, Cleveland's season's kind of unraveling. They got Amari Cooper. He's affordable via this contract extension he signed. Maybe Davante Adams for Amari Cooper straight up turns out to be the trade, but I don't know that Amari Cooper is the equal to Davante Adams on the field. There's supposedly 4 to 6 teams in total that have interest in Adams, but there's things holding this deal up, like we're not giving you a number 2 for a 32-year-old guy, or you got to pay a piece of what's left on the contract. Raiders, freaking dysfunction. I don't mean to insult Raider Nation. I don't mean to talk badly about anybody wearing the colors silver and bleak, But your franchise has been so dysfunctional for so long, going back to the Al Davis era into the Mark Davis era. How do you accept that? Why do you accept that? End of sermon from me. You can go back to church on Sunday. I'll go to the confessional. John, go ahead, respond to Adams and the Raiders.
Well, if he wants to trade, you got to let the guy be traded. I mean, you have to do that. It's weird because on one level, you're thinking, man, that would suck if you were employed somewhere, you had a disagreement with your boss, but you couldn't quit and get a job somewhere else. But you do have a contract with the Raiders, like you said, for 2 or 3 more years. Yep. So it gets tricky here. The right thing for the Raiders to do is just to unload him, just let's move this guy on. But you've talked a lot about Antonio Pierce is always kind of yapping about. And when I see him on the sidelines, he seems like a pretty quiet guy. So what's going on? Like you have a problem with his mouth.
He's a street guy. He runs his mouth all the time about all these different things. Players responded to it very early when he got there. Mm-hmm. And, he kind of made it come together, but then they didn't do it in the playoffs. And now it's just been controversy after controversy ever since the season began with this guy. I mean, it's just like he creates all these distractions. Damn, the job is hard enough, especially there with that roster, that quarterback. And you're doing this, and you're doing this to your top receiver. And by the way, they let their top running back to go to Green Bay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, dysfunction? Yes.
Yeah, and Josh Jacobs is having a nice year.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with the Davante Adams thing. Staying in the National Football League, we had another team, another receiver issue.
Yeah, the Chiefs, here we go.
Boy, you lose Hollywood Brown in preseason, season-ending shoulder surgery. Now you lose Rashee Rice with a really bad knee injury on an accident. He got hit by his own quarterback diving for a fumble. And now they got a problem. Now they do have some cap space, but they're not going to be able to deal with those guys in Las Vegas. So they're going to need to be able to go find a wide receiver. There are guys out there. Now they'd be short-term rentals, but Andy Reid has done a good job taking short-term rentals and turning them into good players. I would think within a week, we might see DeAndre Hopkins move from Tennessee, which is not having a good season, to Kansas City. Short-term rental, former Pro Bowl wide receiver. I would think maybe within a week, maybe Amari Cooper winds up in Kansas City rather than staying with the Cleveland Browns. But they got to go find another wide receiver, a big-time player wide receiver, because of the loss of their top 2 wide receivers. I mean, granted, you got Travis Kelce, but I don't think you can live and die off a tight end offense. I do think you need threats down the field. So keep an eye on Kansas City to do something.
But you ruled out the Raiders, like saying they don't want to trade with their rival in the division. Yep. I always thought that was a BS excuse, because if you're going to do a trade and you're going to get the better end of what you think the better end of the deal is, why not trade within your division?
Yeah, but if you're trying to ask for number 2, Kansas City's going to say, we're not trading you number 2 for a 32-year-old guy.
Well, yeah. You just try to get the best offer you can anywhere. But, it seems like the Chiefs have had this revolving door of wide receivers for quite a few years.
But they don't make mistakes on the guys they import. Now, they just brought J.J. Schuster-Smith back. He had been there a couple of years, played really well. Price got a little high with the salary cap, so let him go. He was in Pittsburgh. I thought he's going to do really well in Pittsburgh, and they cut him loose. But he's back there in Kansas City right now. But your world's not going to flip on J.J. Schuster-Smith. You need another game breaker. And Davante Adams is a game breaker, but he's not there. Maybe Cooper's the next one. Maybe Hopkins, although I don't think Hopkins got a lot of mileage.
How about Brandon Ayuk?
Well, you'd have to pay an unbelievable price. And do you have the cap space to do that kind of deal? And why would San Francisco trade him now? Yeah, 49ers got so many issues.
Well, they were thinking of trading him before.
Yeah. So, okay. That's where we are on that. By the way, we're not done with the NFL. Feel free, Raider Nation, Kansas City fan. If you want to argue, we'll step back and you can shoot bullets at each other. Let's talk about NFL game day. Interesting weekend ahead of us. New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers coming off a dreadful loss. New York Jets, Minnesota on Sunday. Sam Darnold 4-0. They are running it. They're throwing it. And here's Aaron Rodgers, who is going to have to air it out. That's going to be a fascinating game. Next one, Buffalo. Buffalo, the ones that got their brains beat in their last game. Buffalo's got to go to Houston. How tough is that going to be? Josh Allen just cannot do this by himself. By the way, Buffalo has also been mentioned this morning in the Davante Adams things, because Buffalo has not replaced Stephon Diggs, who they let go. They were tired of the act. But the Bills got to go play the Houston Texans. And that's C.J. Stroud, and that's Nico Collins, who is on a fast track to start him at 12 catches last Sunday, and that's a really good Texans defense. Dallas, you got Dak Prescott, you got no running game, and you don't have a real good defense. You got the Cowboys in Pittsburgh. Now, on paper, this game makes no sense at all. Here's Dallas's talent. Here's Pittsburgh's talent. But this is Pittsburgh. This is suddenly Justin Fields, who's going to play against a team that's really got an injury-ravaged defense, and suddenly Justin Fields is making more plays downfield and then still scrambling the football. That's going to be an interesting game. Baltimore, Cincinnati. Hard to believe the Bengals season could be over Sunday night. I mean, you got Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, young wide receivers. Last two games hitting on all cylinders. You got Joe Burrow without a hell of a lot around him getting pounded. The Bengals could be 1-4 by Sunday night. And then you got Cleveland. Deshaun Watson. Myles Garrett hurt. Washington. Jaden Daniels. Quarterback rating, rookie quarterback rating 115 as of today. That's going to be a fun game. Cleveland's season could be over. They could be 1-4 by Monday morning. So those are marquee games on the schedule. Chargers, bye week. Chargers, burning question. Is Jim Harbaugh hindering the development of Justin Herbert by trying to run the ball? Now he's got an offensive line that's all busted up, and Herbert doesn't look like the same quarterback at all. And, of course, Herbert has his own injuries. By the way, this is a bye week for the Bolts. Herbert not practicing this bye week.
Good.
So, big issue there. So, Fans Forum is open. You want to talk about some of these marquee games on the schedule? I'm sure John Riley's got some opinions from left field that I'll disagree with, but go ahead.
I think it's cool that Sam Darnold gets to go back to play against his old team, the Jets. So he's probably licking his chops. He's been performing really well. I know he was excited, when he made the team, and didn't they beat the 49ers recently? So that's good. The Cowboys are just hilarious how they're struggling. I'm all in on Pittsburgh on that. The last thing is that, we put the logos up on the screen. Why is the Cleveland Browns logo so darn boring? I mean, why don't they have like a real logo? It's just a helmet.
That goes back to when they first joined the National Football League. They were in the All-American Football Conference before the merger. So in the 1950s, Paul Brown, legendary Ohio State coach, administrator, was hired as coach and general manager. He was stoic. He was conservative. Paul Brown, he'd wear the fedora, the suit, the long winter trench coat. That's who he was. So they devised the uniform, and the uniform was going to be orange and brown for Paul Brown. Orange helmet. Don't need logos or anything. They had a secondary logo. It's a picture, and you go on the internet, you can find it now because they've kind of brought it back. Actually, it's painted on the 50-yard line. It's a picture of a brownie holding a football like that, but it was never utilized on the helmet. And Paul Brown didn't want any of that. Paul Brown was X's and O's, black and white. This is the way life is and football is, and that's why it's an orange helmet.
Well, it's like what's the word? Like a fairy or something, because it almost looks like the Billikens from St. Louis, where it's just almost like a little troll character. It's weird though. But
it's painted at the 50-yard line. The problem it did with Cleveland, not there's any Browns fan wants to jump on the Fans Forum and respond to this. They made the logo so big at the 50-yard line. You look at it and you can't quite really tell what the hell it is when it gets chewed up. Whereas if they made it smaller, and it would have stood out more. But the Browns have said, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, the only thing that the Browns are different than a lot of other places, dog pound.
Dog pound. That's what I was thinking too. That's the obvious moniker.
So there we are. Those are big games this weekend in the NFL. One other football note, this has to do with college athletics.
Pac-12, more drama unfoldingly.
Pac-12. Basketball power. Good headline, John. Pac-12 gets Gonzaga. Gonzaga leaves the West Coast Conference. Gonzaga's, get this, is going to go from a payday of $3 million, which is what they got in the media contract from the WCC, to $11 million.
Hey.
Now, Gonzaga stayed in the WCC because the West Coast Conference allowed them to keep their NCAA basketball unit money. When you go to the tournament, every time you play a game in the tournament, you get a bonus. Usually that bonus goes into the conference coffers, but to keep Gonzaga in the WCC, they allowed Gonzaga to stake claim to every NCAA unit. Now, Gonzaga goes to the Pac-12 as a basketball school, and all their other sports will be in the Pac-12. They don't have football. But they're going to get to keep some of the units, but not all of the units. It's a new financial structure that the new Pac-12 is laying out. But suddenly the Pac-12, a little bit of basketball identity with the Zags and the Aztecs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's shaping up to be a good conference now, from
we
a
get
basketball.
UCLA back.
Well, yeah, if the other guys come back. But I have two questions about this. Number one is, did Gonzaga have to pay any sort of an exit fee?
I think it might have been $2 million. It wasn't very much.
Okay, and then if they're getting $11 million a year on this media rights thing, is that what the Aztecs are getting too?
Yes, that's what this assumption is with the new contract. And now the Pac-12 goes to the negotiating table, and you got all the network partners sitting around the table, and it says, "Here's our lineup. These are our schools.
Right.
Look at what we got already."
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, there's going to be an 8th or 9th football program. We don't know how quickly. We're not sure who it'll be, but guarantee you it's going to be a name. Gonzaga is a name. And suddenly Gonzaga, in the basketball end of the TV media deal, that carries clout. Probably carries more clout than San Diego State carries.
I think from a national
Sure.
footprint, it does. But the other name I keep hearing now is Sacramento State. And I'm like, that's not a name, but they're really pushing hard.
Yeah, that's far-fetched.
Yeah.
You shouldn't drink a lot of beer at night. But so that's gone on with the Pac-12. Zags are in the Pac-12. Huge get. They talked to Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon doesn't bring a lot to the table. Grand Canyon's not a national basketball power yet, though they're trying to build that. They talked to St. Mary's, which is fine, but St. Mary's is not a national power. So they got the best of the bunch there. And they're going to go back and look. They don't have to make a deal on another football partner till next August, till August of 2025. They have to have an 8th football program a year from now. Mountain West, meanwhile, scrambling, having lost the top 4 in the Mountain West. And
top 5.
Well, losing Utah State, which now means 5. They go into the marketplace and do something a little bit different. They bring back Texas El Paso. UTEP's got great tradition in the southwest corner of that state. They draw pretty well. Football had been down, but it's up and down. Basketball's got great heritage, a.k.a. the Don Haskins era and all that. So they're bringing UTEP back. Now, they're not done. My theory is, okay, be who you are. You're the Mountain West. You're here. Don't tell me you want to be the Pac-12. You're not going to ever do that. But what you got's a good conference. So you got UTEP. Just go across the state line and bring New Mexico State in, because they've been all over the place as an independent and they've been other conferences. Bring them in and give them some stability so they can build and recruit. Because so now you got New Mexico, which is coming back in football, New Mexico State, which has got great basketball, the Pan American Center, and you got UTEP. That's 3 geographical schools. That's pretty good. And then you got Wyoming and Air Force Academy and all that. That's what I would hope the Mountain West would do, is just bring the Aggies back in. Enough with this talking to Texas State, which has got no tradition, or we're talking to South Alabama. That makes no sense at all.
No, it doesn't. But I love this idea because New Mexico State and New Mexico have a very, vibrant rivalry.
Oh, yes.
In football, in baseball, in basketball, everything. And then UTEP, you're right. It was Don Haskins, right?
Yes.
In Texas Western. And what was that movie? Was it Glory Road, I think?
Yes.
What a great movie that was.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, all of that history there, I say bring him in. And, yeah, now you have something cooking, there in New Mexico. And Las Cruces and El Paso are got to be, 30 miles apart?
Yeah, you could throw hand grenades at each other.
Yeah.
So I think so.
That's a good idea.
Throwing hand grenades or bringing them in?
Both.
There has been a lot of talk. This other piece of conversation with the Mountain West would make sense geographically, but financially, I don't think it does. There's an awful lot of talk of Montana State, and they are really good 1AA programs. But I don't think the Grizzlies or the Bobcats are going to be able to fund 90 scholarships for football, because you fund 90 to go from 1AA to Division 1. That impacts the rest of Title IX, because now you got to fund additional things for the women's programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know the Montana State, as good as they are in the Big Sky Conference. And I think they'd be nice rivals geographically. It would fit the Mountain West parameters. I just don't think financially they can execute it. North Dakota State is out there and has been but that's not mountain region. That's over there. So that's where we are with the Mountain West and the Pac-12. You're a college fan. You like the idea of the Zags? Now we got a basketball conference to pay attention to. And if we ever lure Greg Cronin or Mick Cronin and UCLA back, that'd be pretty doggone good. Last topic on the table.
Okay, the high-speed sports wire. Here we go. NASCAR.
Oh, tell you what, this story broke yesterday, and there is so much criticism. It's being directed at Michael Jordan, the NBA legend who owns a team with Denny Hamlin, the driver. It's called 23X. Michael Jordan has filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR against the sanctioning body for what he calls their communistic business practices. If you're going to run in NASCAR, you have to buy what's called a charter.
Mm-hmm.
You agree with the charter that whatever the revenues are, NASCAR is the one that comes up with the formula, how the revenue sharing is split. Well, there's a bunch of teams out there that are very upset at the whole charter situation, but yet they keep renewing the charter because they have to stay in business. Michael Jordan and another team, Front Row Motorsports, have filed a joint anti-class action suit against the France family that runs NASCAR, has run it since 1948. They have hired Jeffrey Kessler. I don't know if you know this name. Jeffrey Kessler is one of the great antitrust lawyers who's done work on name and likeness, has done work for the NFL Players Association when it was free agency, has done baseball stuff. This guy knows where the bodies are. This guy is just tough in court. So I read some of the documentation as part of the lawsuit that was revealed yesterday. It was pretty nasty. And they called the leadership of NASCAR like communists. They said they came in and gave them a take it or leave it offer, said they held a gun to their head in negotiations. If you don't want to be in NASCAR, then don't agree to the charter. Michael Jordan's team with Denny Hamlin is of the opinion you're taking a large preponderance of the revenue streams that come from TV networks and from corporate advertising. You're competing against us, and we're trying to get corporate advertising for our cars to pay for research and development, drivers and testing. You're taking all those sponsors too. So Jordan and his people, just what they put on the front pages was just brutal criticism of NASCAR's leadership. Now, it's going to have to weave its way through the courts. He's taken a lot of heat today in the Deep South. The Deep South, where we had the aftermath of this terrible tragedy, hurricanes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I told you coming in before the show started what NASCAR just did today. NASCAR has turned Charlotte International Speedway, Bristol Speedway, and North Wilkesboro in North Carolina, has turned them into staging centers for the National Guard, for FEMA.
Wow.
They're flying all the helicopters. They're using that as a staging point to load planes and helicopters to ferry them in to western part of North Carolina, to eastern Tennessee and Kentucky, which have just been destroyed by the Hurricane Helene. And so a lot of NASCAR people are bitching that this was the wrong time for Michael Jordan to do this the day before on the heels of all this tragedy in NASCAR's main area, the Deep South. They said, you should have talked this through with the other teams. You should have waited. Now we're dealing with this terrible tragedy. NASCAR's donating volumes of money and food and water for all the FEMA and all those people to fly into these different regions. The Deep South is in terrible, terrible situation. So Jordan's catching a lot of crap. That's story one. If you're into NASCAR, feel free to join us. Story two, this whole Bally sports thing with the TV things.
Mm-hmm.
The Padres lost their TV deal 2 years ago. Major League Baseball did a deal to help the Padres financially take their games in-house, and they're doing the whole streaming situation. And then they did the Arizona Diamondbacks. They own the rights to two teams. Bally's been in the middle of bankruptcy, and Bally has presented all these plans about, let us do this and we'll get out of bankruptcy and we'll be able to take care of all the teams we have contracts with. Well, Bally's run into a lot of headwinds from people saying, all you're doing is stringing us along. You're not helping us. Bally yesterday canceled the contracts of 11 more major league teams that we're not going to pay you.
Wow.
If you want to come back to the table, come back to the table. We'll negotiate down a deal. They canceled Houston, canceled the Cincinnati Reds, The only one they kept, they have one baseball team, Atlanta Braves. They canceled everybody else. MLB, which has gone into the bankruptcy courts and said, these guys are stringing us along. We need commitments from all these teams so we can do what we're doing with the streaming. Look at the success the Padres have had and what's happened in Arizona. We can do this for the Angels are another one that got cut. But this thing has been held up by the bankruptcy courts. So Bally's got a huge problem there. Third item, your San Francisco Giants gave up on Farhan Zaidi, the president of baseball operations, pseudo general manager. They removed him from office. You know, a couple of years ago, he had that 107-win season. You said, wow, look, he rented all these free agents that came together, never came together again. Farm system is still somewhat barren. I missed the playoffs 6 of the 7 years. The 7th year, they won 107 games. Buster Posey has been hired as the president of baseball ops.
Right on.
Legendary player. Said he didn't want to get into management. Somehow he wound up on the board of directors of the Giants. And all of a sudden, he is now the president of baseball operations. They also fired the general manager. They fired some assistant baseball people. So Posey's going to put his own people in place there. And one other note, National Hockey League season opens next week. We talked about, that's the Columbus Blue Jackets logo. We talked about what life would be after Johnny Hockey, after the terrible, tragic passing of Johnny Gaudreau. The National Hockey League Board of Governors and the Players Association just agreed they will allow the Blue Jackets to have a leeway as it relates to being at the salary cap. You have to be at a certain level, expenditure or base floor. Well, they're going to allow Columbus to be below the base floor to start the season because of the death of Johnny Gaudreau. There was all kinds of contractual bonus money paid. And does it count against the cap? Does it not count against the cap? They're allowing Columbus to be below the cap to start the season with a promise somewhere maybe by Thanksgiving they will make player deals to get up to the cap. But they told them the $2 million signing bonus you paid Johnny Hockey, that counts as cap money. Even though he is deceased, you're going to have, that money has to be accounted in the bookkeeping. It counts against your salary cap. I've seen it. I saw that with the San Diego Chargers once upon a time where they lost a player who died in an auto accident and had just gotten a big signing bonus. And NFL told them he counts against the cap. He's dead. He counts against the cap. So the NHL makes this deal with the Players Association. We'll give them a break here, but the $2 million signing bonus counts against your salary cap starting next week.
Interesting.
So anyhow, you want to talk NASCAR? Are you a redneck, good old boy? We can talk Bally, talk about your Giants, or talk NHL.
I think it's hilarious that Michael Jordan is calling out the good old boys from the South as a bunch of goddamn communists. You know, it's playing out like a Smokey and the Bandit movie or something here. So this is fantastic. And it's funny. And yeah, they do. They share their revenue stream. So it is kind of a communistic thing. The Bally thing is weird. You know, we've been covering that for the last year or so. You know, but I want to talk a little bit about the Giants and the Blue Jackets. For the Blue Jackets, first of all, I kind of get the bonus money would count against the salary cap as it's accrued, and you know it's got to be spread out over so many years. What's the word?
Prorated.
Yeah, prorated. But like if let's just say Johnny Gaudreau, I'm gonna make this up, he had a 5-year deal and this was year number 4. His estate doesn't still get paid on a 5-year deal, do they?
They might. Blue Jackets might take care of the family. That happens.
Yeah, but it would be more of a charitable thing rather than a contractual thing.
True. But the signing bonus is hard money that was paid. So therefore, prorated, it still has to count against the cap.
Yeah, because I think even if he was alive and cut, that would still count against the cap. So I understand that part of it. For the Giants, hey, this sounds pretty good. You know, Buster Posey's a sharp young man, and the Giants have been just sort of meh, you know, sort of middling for so long.
Drifting aimlessly. You know, they had the mystical season where they rented all those free agents. They said, wow. I said, but that's a 1-year thing. They come back the next year and they're sub 500.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, Lamont Wade Jr. is not going to win you a World Series.
So that's where we are. Those are hot topics on the table. We try to cover a lot of unique and diverse stuff, try to hit a lot of hot buttons out there. So hope you're enjoying the variety of topics on the table on the podcast. We're getting ready for Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. If you've got projects in the house, at work, or in the backyard by the patio and the pool, Think about your need for materials. Think about ideas. These guys will help you at DIXIELINE Lumber. Here comes Fans Forum. Look at the number of people. Yeah, we might be here till lunchtime on Friday. Go ahead, John.
Okay, here we go. Greg is going to kick us off. He goes, Lee, I feel that the lack of a salary cap is ruining baseball, with the Dodgers and Yankees affording anyone and everyone. Why is there not a salary cap? Would this be good for the MLB? Thanks.
Greg, it's a good question, but there is a luxury tax, and it's a steep luxury tax. And it's got all types of implications if you keep going over the luxury tax threshold. The luxury tax is established by the gross revenues that go into the pot. And that's why the luxury tax, or the gross revenues, go up every year. So therefore, the luxury tax goes up every year. So in essence, the luxury tax serves as a salary cap. I mean, for every Yankees, Dodgers, Mets that are in a $290 million to $305 million, they're paying monster luxury tax. For every one of them, there's obviously a lot of other clubs that are mid-range or maybe in the lower third. That's the beef to me. I think there needs to be a floor spending in baseball. The rich can pay to the luxury tax threshold, but there has to be a floor spending. If you're getting revenue sharing, you're getting the TV marketing money, you need to put that money back into players. Major league veterans, farm system, international signings. If the luxury tax stays at, say, at 290, where it is right now, the rich can pay that because they're paying a big amount of tax when they go over. But if you had a floor to spending of $120 million, you know how many good ball players would wind up in the smaller markets because they're getting their payday there and they're still in the major leagues with all the benefits and working towards a pension? Why baseball and Tony Clark won't accept the floor to spending? Because the floor to spending is what makes the National Football League a success, and they have a hard cap. Floor to spending makes the NBA competitive. It's saved the National Hockey League, because everybody's got to spend here. There's an upper limit, but there's a bottom limit, and you're all getting a revenue share. It makes more money to go to other places. You know, that's why there's good players in Winnipeg and the NHL. And that's why the Sacramento Kings have grown into be a good NBA team. And that's why small market NFL teams can still wind their way into the Super Bowl, because revenue share, cap at the top, floor to spending at the bottom. You got to spend it. You spend it, you get good players. Does that make sense?
Each according to his means. Yes. How's that one go? This is another goddamn communist thing here. You know, I used to have a real problem with revenue sharing and all that because I'm a capitalist and I take pride in being a capitalist. But my opinion changed because unlike, you know, Procter & Gamble competing with people over cleaning products, sports leagues need to have a reasonable level of competitiveness or parity. And I think it makes sense that the league overall should be as capitalist as they can, but to try to have some balance amongst the teams in the league. So I like your point of the floor. I think that's important. But it's weird, though, that if there's a salary cap, you can still go over the cap if you want.
But you pay a big penalty.
Yeah, but I mean, then that's not really a cap. So, you know, because Steve Cohen was willing to throw, you know, gazillions out the window. I mean, he was paying over, what, $450 million on his roster.
Well, by the time he got paying the luxury tax. But the problem is, if you go over it once, the second year you go over it, there's penalties. You lose international signing money. You could lose draft picks. The third year you go over it, and that's why nobody goes to the third year. That's why the Dodgers went way below a year ago. You do it a third time, you forfeit virtually every way to get players from the outside. So there are massive penalties. And the NBA has just added what they call aprons. You're at the salary cap level in the NBA, and if you go a little bit above it, there's an apron, there's penalties. You go above the second apron, it's catastrophic in terms of you lose draft picks, you lose your ability to sign players, you can't trade contracts. So it's there for a reason, and keep having to add things because the super agents find ways to kind of circumvent. But the luxury tax salary cap works because the benefit is you want a good product, and your product could be the Detroit Tigers, small market. Your product could be the Dodgers and the Yankees, big time. But you want a good product, a competitive product. That's my biggest fear. What the NBA has become is that all of a sudden everybody wants 3 superstars in every NBA team. And if you're in Portland, well, sucks to be you because your ownership can't keep up with the other guys. Or what Sacramento or that the NBA's got to worry about that we don't want 5 mega teams and 25 other teams just fill in on the schedule. Greg, great question. Greg ought to be in here doing this show.
Yeah.
On we go.
On we go. Let's go here to Michael. And he says, Lee, quick question. Since the now passing of Pete Rose, wouldn't it be wiser for the Hall of Fame to induct him with a possible comment about the betting on baseball on his plaque?
Bud Black, the Colorado Rockies manager, former Padre manager, he and I had a long discussion about that one time over coffee. He's of the opinion that superstars who have accomplished so much in the game need to be in the Hall of Fame with an asterisk on the plaque. And once you see the asterisk, then you know it's Barry Bonds, and he was a steroid cheat. But Barry Bonds hit 73 home runs and all those home runs. Or Pete Rose had the 4,500-plus base hits, or such and such threw so many no-hitters, etc. Social commentary, they want to keep it out of the Hall of Fame. But the guys who were superstars, yeah, there were some social asterisks to their own personal lives, and that was Pete Rose. John?
I think that he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I think you just tell the whole story. It's a museum, and museums capture everything about history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can't pick like some person from the Civil War and say we're going to cancel them and keep them out of a museum, even if you don't like the way they behaved. So I think you got to put the whole thing in full transparency.
I mean, his memorabilia is there. I've been to the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame by Great American Ballpark. It is really cool. In fact, I told the Padres, I told Peter Seidler and Ron Fowler, I said, you guys need to go to Cincinnati and see what they just did, because it's really different. But they have a wall beyond the front entrance.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 4,592 baseballs. They're all balls from each game that Pete Rose had a base hit in.
Really?
Yeah. And it makes up the whole wall. It's just really impressive. And then they got uniforms and jerseys, and they got the baseball cards of every year that they were put out for the Cincinnati Reds going back to the 1940s. It's video games and all that. It's just really cool.
Well, that's what makes baseball great, is their embrace of history.
Exactly.
The other sports don't do it anywhere to the same degree. And so it's just there's a lot of hypocrisy with this Pete Rose thing.
You just need to get out of the house. By the time we get to the second anniversary of this podcast, I want you to report back to me 25 words or less, just written headlines of what you enjoyed the most about Cooperstown, Canton, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Springfield, Mass, NBA, NHL, and Toronto. You're always wanting to freaking travel. So instead of going to French Equatorial Africa, just make a tour of the Hall of Fames and then report back to us.
Well, I've been to 2 of the 4. I've been to Cooperstown and I've been to Springfield, Mass. But the other 2 I need to get to.
Oh, you got to go to Canton. And if you drink enough beer with me and sit behind the plexiglass, behind the penalty box at the Gulls home games. By the way, the Gulls, I was at the Gulls open training camp yesterday, and I was out there and just met with a coach and general manager, et cetera. And they open their American Hockey League season next week. They play in Toronto. And I was talking to their staff members, and they're all Americans. And I said, you guys ever been there? No. He says, I don't care what you do in Toronto. You can go anywhere you want. I think they're up there for 4 days. They play 2 games in 4 days in Toronto to start the American Hockey League season. You guys need to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. No excuses anywhere else. I don't want you to go anywhere else. I said, I guarantee you go in there, you'll lose yourself for 8 hours. And you just come out the other side and you say, wow, that was really cool. But you got to be a hockey fanatic to want to go to Toronto and see the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's pretty neat.
Toronto's a great city, too.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay, with some more hockey comments here. This is from Callan, and he says, good afternoon, Lee and John. Sorry I missed you guys on Monday. With that in mind, Lee, what are your thoughts on reducing the NHL preseason schedule and expanding the regular season schedule?
There's an awful lot of talk about going to 84 games. It's not been approved by the Players Association. The issue is, though, you need time in preseason in the NHL to evaluate your kids. I would just follow in what the Ducks are doing. The Ducks have got a lot of young players, and Ducks got young draft picks this year. A couple of them were injured. Finally got them back on the ice this week. Those kids need to be able to get into a routine so you can actually evaluate, are they ready to play either in the NHL? Can you send them to the San Diego Gulls? Do they need to go back to junior hockey? Those are the 3 decisions with all these young draft picks they have to make. So you got to have some games. Maybe you're not playing your veterans because you don't want them to get hurt. Just ask the Montreal Canadiens, who just lost Patrik-Laine with a bad knee injury on a cheap shot hit out at center ice. So now, can you compact the schedule? Because if you're going to 84, you're going to eat up at least another week or 2 of what would be your NHL scheduling calendar. So that means you're going to have to compact your exhibition schedule and your preseason camps to a smaller number. And the problem with the NHL is you throw in these international competitions that they want to have, you know, what was the AKA Canada Classic, or you go play these World Series abroad in the middle of the hockey season. So you're stopping your NHL season to go play this tournament for a week. So you got to find a way to make all these things fit. I do think they'll go to 84, but I don't think it's going to happen immediately.
You know, it's interesting to compare how every major sport does their preseason. You know, the NFL makes you pay full price and they don't let you see the practices. But Major League Baseball, man, they got it down. I mean, you go to Phoenix, all the teams are there. There's a really cool spring training vibe. They got all these merchants around the park. It's a destination for people to travel. Why wouldn't the NHL do something like that?
Again, you got players coming from lots of different places. You got players coming from Europe. You got junior hockey players. You got collegiate hockey players. You need a window for them to be able to go through the intense practices and then play maybe 3 or 4 preseason games. And you have to make a decision. Am I putting my veterans on the ice? I don't want somebody to get hurt like what just happened to Patrick Laine. Baseball does it much better. That being said, as much as I love the Cactus League, and I've been there and been in the Grapefruit circuit, I'd like to see baseball cut back from 162 to 154. The grind of baseball is, to me, it's way too long.
Well, I don't see the owners giving up any of those paydays along the way, but just think about baseball. They have those backfields, you know, that everyone can go to. Imagine if hockey had something like that.
Well, you need ice surfaces and rinks. Not everybody has 2 rinks. The Ducks in Anaheim at their practice facility, they have 2 rinks where your kids can skate, the veterans can skate, then you can scrimmage, so you can do it. Down here, the Gulls have 1 rink, the nice little rink here in Poway, which, by the way, is open to the public if you want to go in and see them practice. But that's 1 rink, and I have to stop in the middle because they have to resurface the ice so they can go back and practice second half. But it's different. Okay, next question.
Next question. Let's go here to Willie. Is how much money did the Padres make from their local TV revenue this season?
They won't talk about it. They made, under the old deal with Bally, $40 million a year, and they lost that contract. Major League Baseball made them whole the first year. Major League Baseball probably made them, gave them a piece of $40 million. I don't think it was that. Bally lost its shirt. How Bally ever came up with some of the numbers for rights fees they're paying all these markets is a reason Bally's in bankruptcy right now. So during the regular season, I think Major League Baseball has helped the Padres a great deal. And their whole idea is this whole streaming service. When this whole thing blew up 2 years ago, what I was told from a baseball executive was MLB proposed, I think it was called Team 30. They wanted all 30 teams to give them, after Bally started to go into bankruptcy, to give them their rights, and they would form a baseball streaming service for every market. Well, that sounded great in theory. Padres did it. Arizona did it after they got canceled out. Now the Angels probably are going to do it with the 11 teams that got cut loose yesterday. But the problem is when you got NESN, which has been in business since the 80s with the Red Sox, and that's a massive regional market. You got New York, both the Mets and the Yankees have their channel. You got the Dodgers. What do they call that? Sportsnet?
Yeah,
LA
Sportsnet.
LA Sportsnet, which is tremendously profitable as a regional service for the Dodgers. Those guys say, no, we're not turning our rights that we work so hard to establish over to you. But with baseball, even though they can't do the Team 30, baseballs, if they're going to pick up 11 more at least, if not more, baseball's going to wind up having a good marketing service, and they did a real good job with Padre Baseball last 2 years. I don't think they're bringing in the kind of money they're bringing in. But remember, the Padres also get the national TV contracts. And what they're getting, they get a nice cut. Every homestand, I was told, in postseason is worth $10 million to the Padres' coffers.
Really?
Yes.
That's a lot. That's a lot more than I expected. Well, maybe, if they don't have the Team 30, maybe they can have a Team 26 or 27 and get everyone except Red Sox, Yankees, and Dodgers, because they could find economies of scale and probably share studios and figuring out ways to do the pregame, postgame, which, by the way, I miss. I thought Bally's did a really good job of that. But it is funny that Bally's is still hanging on to the Atlanta Braves. I think about Ted Turner, TBS.
He was the first
80s.
one.
That was
he and Harry Carey in a superstation in Chicago.
Yeah, to me, that was a mind-blowing idea that a baseball team, we could see every one of their games on TV.
I concur. Now it's different. You can see it, but you got to pay for it.
Well, yeah, well, there you go.
Streaming service.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Thanks.
Okay, let's move on here. Let's go here to David John Olivia. He says, AM 570 calling out Padre fans for not selling tickets to Dodger fans.
David, Dodger fans got more problems than that. Dodger fan, shows up early or shows up late, leaves early. Maybe that'll happen this weekend with the series with the Padres. But, hey, I don't think there's going to be anybody wearing blue at Petco Park. You can't get a ticket. That stadium holds 42,400 something. And their announced crowds were 47,700, the back-to-back Braves games, because they stacked them in at Gallagher Park.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the amount of money the Padres are generating from their own fans, because those tickets are hugely expensive for postseason. They're not regular season tickets, and parking is hugely expensive.
Well, some of those ticket agencies, at least the ones run by the teams, will only let people in certain zip codes to buy, I think, to try to keep out the other side. But to me, I don't know. I've gone to games at both Petco and Dodger Stadium, and I've had great experiences interacting with Dodger fans. In fact, the people that came down here to San Diego, they were cool and polite. And it's not like the hoodlums that a lot of people like to say that Dodger fans are. I've never had that experience.
It's probably out there, but no, I concur with you. But, they got Dodger fan whining about not being able to come to San Diego. That's because the Padres are the in thing.
They are, and it's great to see all that electricity, and then all the people that are so hungry for Padres content. Like you said, after they beat the Braves last night, the fans didn't want to leave the stadium. They wanted to be there and keep celebrating. That's why I think this MLB 26, 27, whatever number it is, there's a hunger for content, for Padres information. They just need to find a way to do it and monetize it.
Yeah, and I think baseball's had a rebirth. Attendance went up again for the second straight year across the board in Major League Baseball.
That's
TV
great.
And they've hit a wild idea. This wild card playoff. When it was one game, I thought, my God, this is tension filled. This might be unfair to the loser. And then they said, let's go to best of 3. That's pretty cool. And then the second round is best of 5. I mean, we don't want to be playing baseball till Thanksgiving at Fenway Park in Boston, but the baseball right now, I think, is on a huge upswing.
I agree, and I love it. I love it all.
David, sorry, I can't sell you any Padre tickets if you're wearing blue. Not in my building.
Okay, let's go to a different David. This is David Ramos. He goes, Lee and John, can we get your predictions for the MLB playoffs? Who do you see at the World Series?
Kansas City's got to go to New York. That's going to be hard. That's going to be really hard. I don't know what to make of Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland won 93 games with Jose Ramirez and a bunch of guys you don't know. I mean, I know who Steve Kwan is, and I know who Josh and Bo Naylor are, but there's not a lot of big names in Cleveland. They hit 238 as a team. Yet Cleveland is really dangerous because they got really good pitching. I still think at the end of the day, the Yankees are going to win in the American League. And, I mean, Detroit, this has been phenomenal for Motown Magic, but this is probably, and they're going to play Cleveland. That might be a balanced series. But I got the Yankees in the American League and the National League. We got to go through Dodger Stadium. Everybody else got to go through Philadelphia. But the Dodgers have home field advantage for the final round. But can the Dodgers get to the Fall Classic with a pitching staff that's got more talent on the DL than it's got on the active roster? Big question. And John Riley says,
doesn't the National League seem more stacked than the American League? Because I'm thinking, wow, this is a really tough road for the Padres. I mean, being Atlanta's tough, but granted, it wasn't super tough. But going to the Dodgers and then to Philadelphia, if all goes well, I mean, that's really running the gauntlet.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, my heart is in it with the Padres, but if I'm a betting man, I would say the Phillies from the National League and probably
the Yankees.
The Yankees, yeah. Although I'm going to be rooting for Detroit and Kansas City.
Although, wouldn't it be cool if it was Dodger blue against the Pinstripes?
Oh, well, then, yeah.
Ohtani versus Judge.
And all the national media would be back in their love affair with all this. So, yeah, that would be kind of a fun thing. Well, you mentioned Kansas City's got to go to New York, and all I can think about is George Brett and then late 1970s. Those were classic matchups.
Pine Tart.
Yeah,
that's a different era. I'm sorry, you can't go back to Whitey, Yogi, and Mickey and say, "Oh, Yankees are back." Well, Whitey, Yogi, and Mickey are a long time ago.
Yeah, quite a ways. Yeah.
On we go. Thanks for the tidbit, David.
Okay, let's go here to Chris. And he says, keep in mind that the Tigers' magical 33-12 run began the day after Javi Baez was removed from the lineup. Literally became a winning team with great chemistry hours after Baez and his wild flailing swings was no longer in the batting order. Also, no better bulletin board material for Dodgers than Tatis twerking, wearing half a shirt soaked in champagne.
Take that, bitch. The rivalry is great between these two franchises, and maybe it's going to turn. Maybe it's time to turn. I said a month ago, and what did they say on ESPN last night? I said a month ago on this podcast, the Padres are the most dangerous team heading to postseason. And here we are going to the second round. And what they say last night, exact same thing I said. This Padre roster can beat you. There's no doubt the Dodgers have great stars. I mean, phenomenal. That top of the batting order is amazing. And there's no doubt on paper that that's a great pitching staff. But that pitching staff is currently on the disabled list. And I just ask you again, once you give the ball to Flaherty, who'll give you everything he's got, and once you give Yamamoto his 4 innings, who are you going to give the ball to for the rest of the playoffs for the Dodgers? Because I don't think they have any starting pitching.
This is going to be so great to watch how Dave Roberts manages that pitching staff, because he's getting so much crap from the fans, but he's got a lot of challenging decisions to make to kind of navigate through these different lineups. I'm curious. But, as far as Chris's comments here about Javi Baez, I remember he was doing really well with the Cubs, signs the big deal with the Tigers, and he just sort of fell off the face of the earth.
Injuries. He's got a bruised spinal column. I think he got it sliding into a base. He was on and off the DL multiple times this season. He's not the same player right now because he's hurt. I'm not going to dump on him just because I know he was a pretty good ball player till he got hurt, but he hasn't been the same player since. It's kind of like you and I both know Chris Bryant and how good he was with the Cubs and what he'd hoped to be with the Giants. And he went to the Rockies, and I thought this is going to be a great fit. Home run hitter in Coors Canaveral, Denver, that's going to be great. And that poor guy's had back injury after back injury, and then calf injury and hand injury. And he says he's not retiring. He's going to try to come back. He's going to change his whole workout regimen. He just can't stay healthy. It's the cruel part of baseball.
Well, no one wants to give up on the dream, right? You're finally there at the big leagues and you can't perform. It's got to be tough.
Good questions, Chris.
Okay, let's go here to John. He says, at John, I guess talking to me, San Diego not only loves a winner, no fan base in America deserves one more. And I agree. There's the San Diego sports curse here that's been killing us.
Now, like I said, right at the end of that Padre Braves game last night, when they showed the Padres to come out back on the field, the fans refused to leave. Mm-hmm. And they started flashing on the scoreboard as the Padres players are getting ready for a team photo and, beat LA. And the fans started to chant that while the Padres are on the field. And I just thought to myself, how electric is Petco Park? How cool is Petco Park? And all the fans were giving those gold towels to twirl. And then I had that mischievous thought, damn Dean Spanos, how stupid are you to turn your back on this marketplace now and go up on the periphery in Los Angeles where nobody cares about your franchise.
Well, when the Chargers were doing great, I mean, Qualcomm was always jam-packed.
Sure.
Their attendance dwindled. That ticket guarantee became a weird thing when the quality on the field went down. But this is a good market, and it's a market that deserves a championship. Could this be finally the year? I will hope so.
I told Peter Seidler the day that they announced the press conference that he was coming in as majority owner with Ron Fowler. And I knew Ron for a long time, and Peter knew me. I didn't know Peter at all. And I went up and introduced myself. He said, Hacksaw, I listen to you every day at 4 o'clock. I made sure I was on the 405 in gridlock at 4 o'clock so I could hear the best 15 minutes in sports radio. And I laughed. But we were talking about the marketplace, and obviously we're talking about Petco Park. And I said, what a gem of a place, what a location. It's been so responsible for the growth of that East Village area. I said, I swear to you, this is a great baseball market. I said, you put a winner on the field here. You will draw not only all the Padre fans who love winners, you'll continue to draw a Red Sox fan, Pirate fan, Cubs fan, whomever. And look at the attendance. Who would ever thought this market would average 3.3 million at really high ticket prices. I mean, it's just fabulous how the community has responded to a winner.
This is America's finest city.
Well, most days of the week, yes.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. I mean, can you think of any other big city in America you'd want to live?
But historically, there are great places with baseball tradition. I mean, the state of New England.
Well, yeah, sure.
Wrigleyville.
Yeah.
There's a lot of all things Yankees, Mets. I grew up in the borough. I grew up in the Big Apple. I grew up on Long Island. I know the magnetism the Yankee and Mets baseball brings. So there are some really great markets. And Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers, that's a big regional market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So San Diego deserves a shot at the ring. Hopefully this is the year. Let's move on. Let's go here to Angel. And he says, hey, this past Tuesday was Michael King's coming out party. And that was vintage Sterling Hitchcock.
You tell you what, at the end of that game, I thought to myself, and it flashed into my memory bank, Michael King equals Greg Maddux. If you recall how Maddux painted the black, Maddux never gave your stuff down the middle, hardly ever. And Maddux fooled you with a wide variety of breaking pitches and was always on the corners. He was pinpoint. That's what this guy has become. I mean, he has grown into really becoming a, quote, ace. Now, he's not throwing 103, but tell you what, he's so crafty and he moves the ball so well. What a spectacular pitcher. And I swing back to comments I made months ago. The intangible MVP on the Padres is Ruben Niebla, the pitching coach. If you look at what he's done with each of those pitchers, how he fixed King, how he solved the Dylan Cease walk and home run problem, obviously what he did with Musgrove coming off the injury, what he's done with Suarez, how he's steadied Morion, what he did with Martin Perez, who had a 6 ERA in Pittsburgh and Texas, and last we checked here, he was 2.68 with San Diego. Ruben, he's got the Midas touch.
He does. I mean, and everyone preaches, all the great things that he does. But yeah, this Michael King, Angel's comment is right on the money because he is. Michael King's a stud. Mm-hmm. I mean, that dude gets out there. He's a horse. And you have confidence in him like you do with a Nolan Ryan or a Roger Clemens in terms of a guy that's big, sturdy, and that can carry you for 7+ innings. And for a young man, he is so composed, and his his heart rate is very low. He's just a very calm and in control, and that ball moves all over the place.
So you miss Juan Soto?
No, not at all, baby. No way. Yeah.
Angel, thanks for joining us. Next one.
I mean, there's so many comments here. This is from John Dowd. In hindsight, gambling in Southern Ohio was a huge at one point. Don't forget Art. Like Schleister, I guess he's talking about.
Well, Schleister or maybe Art Rooney. That's how Art Rooney got the Pittsburgh Steelers. He became the owner of the team. Art Rooney bet on horse races, made his money, and then bought the Steelers.
Oh, you told me this.
Yeah, way back in the day.
So more gambling hypocrisy with the NFL.
Oh, here we go. Now that's don't be bringing in the modern day casinos. But gambling obviously has been part of sports. You didn't answer the question about Pete Rose though. But somebody else will. On we go.
Okay, well, yeah. Here's a comment about Pete Rose from Roger. He says Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Dodgers in 5 over the Padres.
I don't know. It's going to be 5. It's going to be tough. It probably goes the distance. But Roger, unless you got any eligibility left, please tell me who is going to pitch for LA in games 3, 4, and 5, or maybe even in games 2. If they get their starters in trouble and they have to burn through the bullpen, how you can have bullpen days too? Dodgers just don't have enough pitching, I don't think. Unless every game's going to be 11-8, and maybe it will be.
It's crazy. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that they won the division. And you were saying how the Padres are the most dangerous team in the playoffs, but they didn't win the division. The Dodgers did with this incomplete, crazy mash unit of a pitching staff. It boggles the mind. I'm anxious to see how Dave Roberts manages this.
All I know is it Saturday night yet?
First it was Tuesday, now it's Saturday. Hey, let's move on. Let's go here to Dave E.K. He says, Pete Rose was worse than the steroid cheaters. He violated the integrity of the game. No Hall of Fame for cheaters and gamblers, especially gamblers, not just baseball. Jonte Porter, NBA lifetime ban.
Well, I think there's a sense of truth in that. Pete denied that he bet on the Reds to lose any games. We don't know fact or fiction whether that's a totally true statement. The integrity of the game is the most important thing the game has to offer. But by the same token, we're going to use the word integrity. We can't put Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and A-Rod and on and on and on in the same sentences, the use of the word integrity there, because they have obviously cheated. You can yell at me, well, Lee, it was legal. Well, it was legal because the union refused to allow steroid drug testing till the bitter end. And then finally, Donald Fear had to cave in to public opinion and allow that to happen. But the integrity of baseball games was impacted by the guys that were injecting themselves.
You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can appreciate what they did on the field and acknowledge that they cheated or they gambled or whatever it was. But you just got to tell the whole story because it's a museum and it's about the history of the sport.
Yeah. And if Pete Rose's jerseys, the cutoff Reds jersey, and the Big Red Machine jersey, if all that stuff is in Cooperstown on the first floor, then Pete should probably be in Cooperstown with a plaque.
Yeah.
With Tony Gwynn and all the other great players, and just put a star next to it, put an asterisk. And the minute you see the star, you know what it represents.
And then right below it, there'll be like a little place to deposit a $5 bill for an autograph.
Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Roger. He goes, LOL, San Francisco Giants fan. No wonder salty against the Dodgers. The reporter on the right, I think he's talking about me. But, I was raised.
Right. You're a dumbass. Go ahead.
I was raised a Giants fan. My mother taught me at a very young age, we hate the Dodgers. We hate the Rams. We hate the Lakers. And it's in the drinking water where I grew up. And then I ended up coming to San Diego, and it was kind of the same thing. So from both sides of it, I'm really more of a Padre fan than a Giant fan now. But in both cases, no go Dodger blue.
But they were great players. I mean, McCovey and Cepeda. And I mean, just years and years and years of great San Francisco Giant players. And of course, I grew up back when Say Hey was a special thing at the old Polo Grounds in New York.
Yeah, but the Giants with Mays and McCovey, that era kind of fizzled out in the early 70s. McCovey kind of came back later. But that's when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I started following the team. So when I first really got into them, it was Chris Spire, Bill Madlock, Willie Ontiveros, Steve Ontiveros and Willie Montañez.
Yeah, but those guys are not the equal.
Larry Herndon, Jack Clark when he was a rookie, Ed Halicki, the Dodger killer.
Yeah, but those weren't the equal of the Baby Bull and Stretch and all those guys.
No, and Juan Marichal. That was no way. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's go to Rap Album Depot. And he says, I don't like the salary cap. I honestly believe the NFL and NBA and NHL have more franchises going through the motions like the Pelicans and Panthers and Senators and Jaguars, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the only thing is you can't police management. You can't police, is this a good owner? Is this a qualified general manager? Did they make the right draft pick? Can they survive injuries? You can't police that at the league level. But if you have a financial blueprint that makes the same amount of money for the most part available to everybody, then if you have good leadership, you can be the Buffalo Bills and go to 4 straight Super Bowls and be the old Minnesota Vikings back in the day, or be the modern day New England Patriots with the volumes of information that Belichick offered. There has to be a salary structure so that everybody's kind of playing by the same rules financially. Whether your front office is good, that's up to you, the owner, to decide.
It makes me wonder, like from a business perspective, these guys are just insanely rich that own these teams. And it seems to me, for them, it's almost like a toy, like a way for them to be like a celebrity and own a team. But on a year-by-year basis, are these franchises cash flow positive?
Yes. I think for the most part because of the NFL TV contracts. And for the most part, aside from some of the crap franchises that have run their franchises in the ground, don't draw, they make volumes of money with sellouts. I mean, the NFL TV ratings this year, we're 4 weeks into the season, are statistically phenomenal, better than they were last year. The Chargers-Chiefs game the other day, last Sunday, had 24 million viewers nationwide.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I mean it's an event.
It is.
The NFL is an event. Now, if you screw up your franchise like the crazy man in Washington, Daniel Snyder did, or David Tepper's doing down in Carolina, it's a long road back. I mean, once you wreck it and you make bad mistakes from a player personnel standpoint, that takes a long time to be able to get back. But no, the league it's printing money every minute of every day.
But you can print more money if you've got a better team, right?
Oh, exactly.
So maybe these franchise owners that like the Bill Bidwells of the world? Are they just kind of saying, whatever, we're just going to milk this cow?
No, I don't think it's that. I think they're just bleeping incompetent. And you've crushed a few of those people you've worked for, so have I.
Yeah. Okay.
Next question. Good question.
Okay, let's go here to Broman74 Dude. Question: this Padres series versus the Dodgers. Considering how hot Ohtani has been lately and the year, he's 13 for 15 with runners in scoring position last 15 games. How would you pitch Ohtani with runners in scoring position? I would walk him every time.
Well, you could do that, but then you got to face Mookie, and then you got to face Freddie Freeman. Then you got Will Smith. Then you got Teoscar Hernandez. They do have guys who can swing sticks and put the ball in the seats. So, how many times you want to load the bases? Isn't that kind of playing with dynamite? Then you pitch around him and see if you can get Ohtani to chase. We get into the fun thing is when you get into late parts of games, call to the bullpen. Here comes my left-hander, Tanner Scott. You're going to throw that sweeper. You're going to throw that slider. That's Ohtani. You're going to have to reach for it and hit it. But Ohtani can reach for it and hit it. Ohtani, I think at one point, right at the end, was 16 for 32 in the heat of the pennant race. Think about that. 500 in the heat of the pennant race. And what an unbelievable statistical season he's had. I mean, every facet of his game is complete. Now, you could bark back at me, dude, and say, well, he's strictly a DH. Well, he's still got to produce when he's a DH, even if he hits once every 3 innings. But he's made preparation a science. Prime example is what the scouts say. He was not a great base runner. He made himself, through video study, a great base runner in terms of who might have taken a lead off at first base. What does that pitcher do? He's got this thing down to a science. So analytics, it's more than just swinging at a pitch or running the bases. Analytics comes into play here, John, of I am preparing to face this guy who's the starter. I'm talking specifically Ohtani. And I know what his strengths are, and there's a trend as to how he'll throw me pitches, and then whether I swing or not. And by the way, if I get to first base, I know everything about his pickoff move and what he throws normally first pitch. He's throwing breaking ball, I might go because I can steal on his motion. I can steal on a slower breaking ball than I can a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. There's a science to the analytics to prepare you for it. And this guy, I'm told, is just fanatical. That's all he does is study.
It's just amazing. I mean, this guy is a freak of nature because when we were growing up, you'd pick a player, I don't know, Mike Schmidt, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, probably hit like 280. We're like, that's darn good. I don't know if anyone's going to be better than that. And Ohtani is just blowing those old guys out of the water with these statistics that are superhuman, like we've never seen before. I mean, to Broman's point, I mean, yeah, maybe you walk them like they used to walk Barry Bonds. Didn't they do that one time at the bases loaded?
I don't know if it was the bases loaded, but yeah, you could do that. But then what do you do with the second, third, fourth, fifth guy in the Dodger batting order? Because they can all go yard.
Yeah, I mean, Mookie is a hell of a player. I always think about the Red Sox fans. They lost out on Mookie and on Xander, both great guys. You know what? A comment I remember seeing just recently, it was fascinating to me, is people have broken down the Ohtani swing and how it's a little different. He kind of opens up those hips quick. And they said Jackson Merrill's swing is very similar to Ohtani's. And I went, it makes sense if you watch it.
That's why he's got oomph. That's why that ball gets out of there pretty quick.
For a little skinny kid, yeah.
The one thing, and then we'll move on, I had not paid much attention to Ohtani and the Angels just because the Angels are kind of off the radar. And when he got to Dodger Stadium, I saw him. His wrists, he's so fast, so powerful with his swing. The greatest power hitter of modern day was Henry Aaron. Great wrist. The next guy was Vlad Guerrero Sr. Phenomenal wrist action. This guy is beyond both of them. And then he's got the big and the power and the stride and everything else. It's a once-in-a-lifetime player, maybe a once-in-a-lifetime year that we're seeing right now.
I mean, has there been any equivalent of this in another sport that where someone comes into the league and just blows everyone up?
Well, different game, but I mean, Magic Johnson was unbelievably gifted in all the things he did.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. When Dan Marino first got to the NFL, nobody had seen the wrist action quickness to get balls out of there. Dan had the Marx Brothers. They had all those Duper and Clayton and all those receivers, and nobody ever seen a quarterback get the ball out of there that quick. So yeah, they're based on the individuals showing up. Earl Campbell. That was power big boy football when he first got to Houston. Jimmy Brown back in the day. So yeah, and now modern day hockey, all things Connor McDavid. Prior to that, all things 99 Gretzky. I mean, these guys, you never saw this stuff on the ice before. So the great athlete shows up and can change the game.
Yeah. I mean, Larry Bird is another great example. But for me as a kid, the one athlete that seemed super human to me was Nolan Ryan, because he could throw over 100 miles an hour.
Nonstop.
And now, like, half the league can do it, it seems.
But how long do they last? Yeah. Nolan was very, very different.
Yes, he was.
Okay, dude, thanks for joining us, Fans Forum. Let's do a couple more.
Okay, let's go here to Francisco. Hacksaw, what do you think about a rematch between the Yankees and the Padres?
Wouldn't be bad. I think the Padres are the most dangerous team. I got questions about Yankee pitching. Once you get beyond Garrett Cole, you're going to trust Carlos Rodon second half of the season. He really faded. The kid pitcher, Luis Gills, had a really good year. Second half of the season, he had some health issues, so he's not quite as dominant as he was there. I don't know about the Yankee bullpen, but there's no doubt the Yankees are more than just Judge and Soto. But between them, I think that's 96 home runs. But, Gleyber Torres is a really good hitter. Volpe, the shortstop, does not get a lot of national link. That's a really good baseball player. He puts bat on ball. So the Yankees got some offense to go with the two big sluggers. I don't know if the Yankees got enough arms. That's why I said the Padres. Padres are the most dangerous or the most complete team in the playoffs right now. And by the way, the people that are bagging on me on social media when I was critiquing the Padres, my House of Cards comment, that's when they were underachieving. That's when they were not the same team physically nor emotionally. We got to the trade deadline, and they brought in the two more relievers after getting a Rise, the great leadoff hitter. The whole chemistry of the team changed. So the people that are banging on me saying, oh, you were burying them before. I was burying them because they were grossly underachieving, and now it's come together. So I'm going to compliment them.
They bag on you no matter what you say, no matter when they say it.
When you get your own podcast, you can say whatever you wish.
Now, I'm thinking of the Yankees pitching staff. Isn't Carlos Rondon on that?
Yeah, that was what I was just talking about, Rodon.
But he's healthy?
Well, he was hurt. He had a couple of real crap years. He pitched with the Giants, was with the White Sox, and got to the Yankees and got hurt. Had all kinds of shoulder miseries. He had a good first half this season, but he staggered the second half. Now he's back. I think he's going to be the game 2 starter, but what kind of quality start you're going to get? How many innings deep does he go? I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah. You want to fit some social media in?
Oh, should I? Yeah, go ahead.
All right, we're not going too long here. Okay, let's get these guys in. There's some good social media comments here.
I'll be the judge of that.
All right, let's go here to WNBA because this got a lot of comments, and this is from RMA, and it says, I'm 1,000% against what these fans are saying. However, just because it hurts the players' feelings is no reason to kick them out.
Yeah, but where do you draw the line? You buy a ticket to sit behind the bench. Shouldn't there be comments in good taste if you're going to sit behind the bench? I mean, why are you making comments about race? Why are you making comments about sexual preference? Are you there to cheer Caitlin Clark or to cheer Angel Reese? Why is John Q. Fan venturing over the line that it becomes a personal thing, black versus white, or personal thing about sexual preference? Where does that come into the equation? You tell me. I don't know.
Imagine going to Costco and then starting to heckling the worker because of their race or some other ridiculous thing. And that's what it's like. If you go into an arena and you're dropping F-bombs or, slurs on any category, yeah, the security should throw your butt out. I mean, be a civilized human.
That's what I think. But obviously, RMA says a little bit differently. I should be allowed to do anything I want when I get my ticket and sit behind the bench.
Well, people think, some people say, it's free speech. Well, it's not, because it's a private company and they can throw out people that are misbehaving.
Okay. Thank you for the contribution.
Okay. Let's go here to comment here from, this is what you were talking about. This is from Sumdro. How many Padres pickles does this guy suck? When the Padres exit in the wild card, I want to hear this man's intake on Padres. I'll be waiting.
Regardless of what happens. By the way, they won the wild card.
They did, yes.
Okay, so good.
So this was from a few days ago.
I like pickles, but not that many of them. Even if they don't beat the Dodgers, that won't be a disappointment because the Dodgers are a first-place team again. 11 division titles in 12 years. Now, you may dislike the Dodgers' amount of money they spend. You may dislike Dodger history. So if the Padres don't win this second round, say it ends here, and it could, or it could end in Philadelphia, I'll only remember this season. I'll only remember 38 come-from-behind wins. I'll only remember ninth-inning walk-offs. I'll only remember the greatness of this pitching staff. I'll only remember the kid, 2-0, Jackson Merrill.
Yeah.
I'll only remember Arise getting base hits, regardless of what area code the pitcher was thrown in. So that's my take. I hope they go deep. This has been fascinating to watch this thing grow, see this community react. I'm not going to critique them because I've been here since 1987, and this is coming from a kid that grew up in a baseball family. That's all I lived for as a kid, was to watch the games in black and white TV. That's how long ago it was. Watch baseball in the fall at sunset in October on the Eastern Seaboard. If this doesn't go beyond this Dodger series, I'll remember this summer. I think it's the most fun summer covering baseball I have ever had in San Diego.
So what's the better vibe? Chargers Super Bowl season or today with the Padres?
Well, Chargers Super Bowl season, because I was right there doing the play-by-play and I was experiencing every step of the way and the interaction with the people. But this is cool. I mean, I like Preller. I don't agree with Preller's philosophy all the time, but I like Preller, his boldness, obviously great regard for Mr. Seidler. And I had a lot of off-the-field interactions with Peter. And before that, with a lot of different Padre ownership from John Moore's on. So it's different being a talk show host and a podcast person as compared to being in the dugout every day or being in the press box every day. I'm still down there, but I'm not doing it to the numbers and lengths that I'd done it before because my work schedule has changed a little bit. But just to see this thing come together and to see the community, that's the coolest thing. Prior to that, the coolest thing I ever experienced was that last Chargers season when they went to the Super Bowl, and all the stadiums, all the buildings downtown and in Mission Valley had lights on in buildings at night with a lightning bolt.
Yeah, that was cool.
Coolest thing I'd ever seen. And it goes to show when a franchise is really good and vibrant and part of the community, how it emblazons the community to bring it together. It's just phenomenal.
Well, think about how the Angels, 20 years ago, they had the Thunder Sticks. They won the World Series. And now all that energy is gone.
Sure.
It's sad. It really is.
Are you a good owner? A good owner makes good choices. Every owner makes mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a good owner? Can you continue to make the right decisions? In the Angels Arte Moreno case, the answer is no. And that's sad because I liked him for a long time. I got along well with him for a long time, but that's kind of gone by the boards. Here's the most unique thing that I don't think I've ever mentioned this before because I'm a big hockey guy. The Anaheim Ducks, who have their own set of building problems, trying to fix that franchise after having won the Stanley Cup, and it's all gone away from them. But they started a marketing campaign. They were just voted as having the #1 farm system in the NHL. And they're force-feeding all their kids. They put them all up on the Ducks roster. They just started a marketing campaign. You go to the website or just go on the internet. Anaheim Ducks, new uniforms. They started a marketing campaign. They called it "This is Orange Country," and they've changed the whole color scheme. The jersey's all orange now, orange and white, and some brown trim. It's very different. It looks really cool. But they did this marketing campaign. This is Orange Country for the Ducks as a shot at Arte Moreno. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I told one of the Ducks people a couple of weeks ago, I said, brilliant. The uniforms look great, but this whole thing, but they got a patch on their jersey, live in Orange County. It's really kind of cool. So
yeah.
Are you good? Have you done a good job marketing? Do you make more good decisions than you do bad decisions? Right now, the Angels know you can always rally back. You can always fix an ailing franchise. It took the Cubs and the Red Sox a long time, but you can do it.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that angle a lot. Usually, any kind of pro franchise, when they start to get overly marketing, sometimes they get too hokey with it. Mm-hmm. But I like that. Yeah, Orange Country. That makes sense.
Good deal.
Okay, let's go here. Let's talk a little Dodgers. This is from a fan that actually likes Dave Roberts. This is from Eric. He says, I'm one of the few that love Dave. For me, I hold all the players more accountable when they don't perform more than Dave. Plenty of managers make similar mistakes or decisions in regards to pitching changes, pinch hit situations, etc. Postseason decisions are amplified, which I get, but man, it shows how hard this game is. I think the most difficult thing for Dave is trusting analytics versus gut feel, in my opinion.
Well, sometimes you're ordered to trust analytics. That's a piece of this equation, and then sometimes it's got to be done by the players. That's all. If Jackson Merrill doesn't get to that fly ball in the 9th inning running full speed in center field against the Braves on Tuesday, the Braves might win that playoff game, and we might be playing a third game tonight. Do the players accomplish what the players need to accomplish? It's a big issue. The injury factor changes everything. The Padres just lost Joe Musgrove for probably the rest of the playoffs, but that's why you have insurance policies, right?
Yes.
So that's what my column was today. The Dodgers, did they make a mistake? This is not Dave Roberts. This then goes to Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes, the general manager. You invested $136 million in a pitcher with a history of elbow problems in Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, and now Tyler Glasnow's broken down on you again. So the success in the dugout, starting with the playoff games Saturday against the Padres, are not just on Dave Roberts, but it's on the players. Do they execute, get the job done? Does the aging bullpen hold up? And by the way, there is no Tyler Glasnow, and all these other guys have physically broken down because of the Dodger way of how you treat your pitchers and want them to max out. So it's more than just Dave Roberts, good decision, bad decision. Why the hell did you do that decision?
Well, Dodger fan always says they could have just brought in Joe Torre and he would have had 3 championships. It's like Pat Riley, just roll the ball out for LeBron. And I mean, how much impact do you think the manager really has? I mean, they're going to make mistakes and maybe make some good moves, but I don't know if that's going to be as critical as, if Ohtani decides to suddenly go over in a game.
Players have to execute.
Yeah.
It's not on Dave Roberts if Teoscar Hernandez gets killed by a fly ball in the outfield because he's kind of poor defensively. That's not on Dave Roberts. That's on the player. You could bark and say, well, Dave Roberts shouldn't have put this guy in right field, just make him the DH. And then what do you do with Ohtani? So the players have to execute. But it's a bigger organizational thing. Do you make the right decision on player personnel? The Padres pissed away a lot of money on Eric Hosmer. Same thing on Will Myers. And now they were trying to build some credibility and get quality players in the front door, but they burned through a lot of bucks. When we got to the trade deadline and they made the deals to get all these relief pitchers after getting a rise in Dylan Cease, they traded away 15 prospects. 15. And I was critical but I also said, you have to go back and find this in the archives, but I also said, they must be in the World Series this year or next year. They have to, because the roster is built to do it now. They're built for October. Because if they don't, in 2 years, there's still no farm system. There'll be nobody to bring up. And in 2 years, everybody will be 35 to 40 years of age with 5 years to go in their contracts, and they'll be stuck in a pretty tough place. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me. I don't give a crap, but go ahead, John.
Well, like you always say, boots on the ground. Yeah. They're going to find guys. I have confidence there. The question is, we're going to be stuck with these big contracts that are going to take these players into their 40s. You brought up Will Myers, and I've seen some people on Twitter saying we need to bring back Will Myers to throw out a first pitch.
That'd be cool.
And that'd be fun.
He was popular.
Yeah.
He was a guy that got to this level and never got beyond this level. When he first came in Kansas City, I mean, he was going to be one of the cornerstones for that next generation, and he got to a level and never grew beyond it. And then he got traded to Tampa, then he got here, and he was a good, steady player, but for the kind of money he was making, and then, they got rid of him. Next thing you know, he's out of baseball. I say, how could Will Myers not have a job? Well, how can Hunter Renfroe be a fringe player now? He was a really high number 1 pick. Well, guys get their limit, and that's all they get.
Have you seen the video clip of Will Myers at one of the bars in the Gaslamp buying rounds for everybody? And it was right after, I think, one of the Padre playoff games in, was it 2022?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
good
he
for
was
him.
A good guy, but he topped out.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, a couple more here before we put a lid on this.
Before we put a lid on it, okay, here's another comment here from Larry. Because you talked so much shit 2 months ago talking about Preller, about Soto, about how he gave away the farm.
No, I was talking about, did they get the right players in the deal? And it's obvious they did in the Soto transaction because of what that pitcher became, Michael King. Now, they also used one of the other chips in that deal, Drew Thorpe, to go get Dylan Cease on a 2-year rental. Now they're going to owe Cease a significant amount of money next year. In fact, the Padres, they got some tough decisions to make once this season is over, John, because Arise is going to be arbitration eligible, and that's going to be $15 million. He's going to be double. And the Padres are going to have to pay all that money because Miami's paid his contract this year. So when he gets to 15, that's Padre money. And Cease is kind of going to probably be 14 to 15 million in arbitration. That's Padre money. And a whole bunch of other guys. They have a tough decision to make on Ha-Seong Kim because his option is $8 million. I don't know if you're going to give a guy an $8 million. He's had one really good year out of the learning curve season and then the injury season. So they got some real tough decisions to make. But at the end of the day, complete roster. This time, they got to do it this year or next year because then after that, you're going to have so many old players. And Michael King is going to be in for a huge payday too. So, but that's starting in November. We'll worry about November when we get to November 1st. Let's just enjoy this thing because this is going to be cool.
Yeah, and we have to stay focused on the present and in the moment because this is a year where it could happen. But the Padres, what should they do with Jurickson Profar next year? I mean, that's a tricky contract.
Well, that's 1.5, and he'll probably ask for $5 to $8 million. They'll have to make a tough decision. I guess I'd give it to him on maybe a 1-year deal. I'm not going to give him 3 years, $25 million. Not at his age. This is the one isolated year of him having just a spectacular season. But he deserves a pay hike, and I'm sure the Padres will probably do that. It might come at the cost of Ha-Seong Kim. Because you're going to have to move money somewhere just because your established cornerstone guys are all getting pay bumps.
Well, I think Tanner Scott's going to be gone.
Well, he's a free agent. I mean, you could bring him back.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what the price tag is going to be, but it might be $10 million as a setup guy or as a closer. So they knew going in, some of these might be rentals, and so be it. But that's for November 1st. What are you worrying about, pal? Come on, it's just the first week of October.
Let's enjoy it while we can. Is it Saturday night again?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, do you have room for one more?
One more, go ahead.
Okay, because we're already over 2 hours here. Okay, let's go here to Lakers from Generational Laker. Looking forward to watching the Lakers' young studs bust these other NBA teams' asses right before your very eyes. All you guys have done in the national media is glorify LeBron James while demonizing his Lakers teammates not named Anthony Davis. Austin Reeves, Max Christie, Dalton Knecht, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt are going to make y'all pay dearly for that this season. Mark my words.
If they stay healthy, if the King and AD can stay healthy, then this is a pretty good basketball team. Fascinating check marks. How good is JJ Redick? Does what he wants to do work in the NBA with those veteran players? Item 1. Item 2. I think the most important acquisition is Dalton Knecht. If he can be a three-point shooter game by game and be trustworthy, that helps your offense a great deal. Item 3, which of the bench bunch can you keep healthy? Because that bench bunch was all chewed up. A year ago this week when they were in camp, they had gotten some guys who had accomplished some things coming off benches in places like New York and Washington. Cam Reddish,
Gabe Vincent
in Miami, etc. And Vanderbilt, and all those guys got hurt, all of them. So if those guys stay healthy, then there's contributions there. But and then we haven't mentioned the kid, Bronny. There's so many people spending so much time with conversation about the 12th man on the roster, Bronny James. We'll just see how he fits, how much he gets to play. But usually 12 guys on a roster don't get a lot of reps unless their game allows them to improve as they go and then they become more trustworthy. I do think the wild card is Knecht. If this kid out of Tennessee can stroke threes like he did at the end of the summer league, but that's the summer league. That's not going against NBA all-pro defensive guys, hand in your face, body on your body. If he can do that, then I think they're going to be pretty doggone good because that becomes a third tool. And I'm still a big believer and fan in Austin Reeves. I think they need to groom Rui Hachimura to be more consistent. There's a stat out there. When he was in the starting group with the other starters, they were 21-8. Now, that's a pretty good number. They were sub 500 when he wasn't in. But he's so hot and cold. So Knecht, Rui, to me, are items 1A and 1B. Can they be consistent? If they are, I think it changes the whole scope of Lakers basketball.
And to me, the Lakers have a low ceiling and a high floor. The best case scenario, maybe they finish 4th in the West. Most likely they're going to be a bubble team to make the playoffs. I don't see them knocking off the Nuggets or the Celtics. The Celtics are going to be dissolved. I think they're not going to be able to afford it all. But I don't think they're going to be one of the top teams in the league, because even if everything goes right, you'd be lucky to make the semifinals in the West.
Well, if everything goes right, means AD and LeBron have played a ton of games, but we haven't seen that in the last couple of years because of nagging injuries. That's a big issue.
And they're older.
They are. But if this is the one magic year, and then those kids, 1A, 1B that I just talked about, have good seasons, consistent seasons, now suddenly it's a very different team. But you got to keep the two superstars totally healthy. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed the wide variety of topics on the table. This is the way we do sports talk radio, the way it should be done. We really enjoy having you part of the Fans Forum. God, there's so many people that want to be in here. We should dedicate one show, and all we do is just take Fans Forum calls. Yeah. First-time callers, long-time listeners, losers included too. But hope you enjoyed all the wide variety of things we do. Just a couple of favors. Hey, listen, when we're done, I want you to go on social media, join my Twitter all-star team. Just hit @Hacksaw1090, follow. Want you to share, tell everybody what the hell we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel. Thereby, you will get alerts every time we put something up, even when this nutcase puts stuff up at 2:30 in the morning and your phone goes ding, 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 ding. Want you to subscribe and be part of what we're doing. Check my website. When we're done, just take a gander, see what I write every day. It's there first thing every morning. This podcast brought to you by the good people at DIXIELINE Lumber Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego and the new one in Orange County. Is it Saturday yet? John, I can't wait. Next week, hey, get this. Next week, I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be doing this podcast from my cottage in the Northern Adirondacks in upstate New York, snow or no snow, and it's in the 30s at night there right now. John will be anchoring from here, but we'll be on the road. So we'll be doing a road trip podcast next Monday, coming off the Great Sports Weekend. John, get ready for playoffs, baby. And then, of course, we got the big college football Saturday and NFL Sunday.
Who's playing tonight, Thursday Night Football?
Tampa Bay, Atlanta.
Oh, here we go.
Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins.
That's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely. Have yourself a great sports weekend.
Same to you.
And same to you. Great sports weekend. Thanks for always being part of our podcast. Tell everybody what we're doing. Thanks for joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.